town of the good, the bad, and the weird. You either live by the gun, or you die by the sword.
Welcome to the Good, the Bad, and the Weird podcast. I'm Nicho.
And I'm Chris.
And this year we are finally kicking off the ooky spooky season with Folktober.
Yes, a whole month dedicated to folk-style horror movies.
Yes, and my choice for this month was Midsommar.
A great choice. A rather recent choice, only from 2019.
Yep.
I believe we saw this in theaters together as one of our first friend activities.
Yes, actually one of our first podcast activities. We did a mic review for Midsommar back in 2019 when we were still going to theaters together and doing brief non-spoiler reviews for new movies.
Still going to theaters, period.
I went to a movie yesterday, so...
I know, I didn't. I sat in my room very comfortably.
You luckily missed out on the creator.
I heard.
Yeah. But for those unfamiliar, Midsommar follows a woman named Dani in her trip to Sweden to view a Midsommar celebration with her emotionally distant boyfriend and his friends.
Yeah, it's... I think for a horror film, especially with a, rather traditional setup for a horror film, this is very 80s horror in that we have a female main lead, there's a group of teenagers, or in this case, college kids, and then they go away somewhere far in the woods, this case the mountains of Sweden, and shenanigans happen. However, where I think this steps above and really does carve itself out for a spot in horror history is the way it addresses Dani's troubles, as opposed to just a screaming sad lady. Dani has a real journey throughout this movie.
Yes, and we'll be diving into that a little bit. So, Midsommar is written and directed by Ari Aster. Stars Florence Pugh, Jack Rayner, Wilhelm Blomgren, William Jackson Harper, and Will Poulter. Lots of Wills in this one.
There's a lot of Wills in this one.
Yeah. And for this one, I'm going to make a lot of comparisons for this movie, in a way trying to be a spiritual successor to 1973's Wicker Man, but not 100%. I think it's what we wanted it to be, per se. It
definitely has a lot of the same elements. There's definitely a lot of the same themes that are explored. But I think that this one does a nice way of taking what we've learned about cults into account with its storytelling, which I like a lot. The cult research was done spectacularly for this movie. Now, okay, when I say that, I know you're going to go off on the tangent of, this isn't based on a real cult. Yes, I understand.
I know.
However, the tactics and styling and the framework that this movie uses to, persuade you as the viewer that this cult is actually a very good choice for Dani is beautifully done. No,
I will agree with that part, but I'm going to get into it. Having spent a couple years away from this movie and going back to rewatching it, I have issues with the movie.
Sure. I rewatched it and found more hidden gems. A delight. The background of this movie was so much fun.
Yeah. But before we dive into it, there's not a whole lot of information surrounding the movie.
No, it's pretty cut and dry.
Yeah, Ari Aster's a little bit close-handed with what his research, and I'm going to say research in air quotes.
Very loose.
Because he says it'll make some people look really bad, but I also don't believe him.
I also don't believe him, especially because his other claim to fame is Hereditary.
And recently Beau's Not Afraid.
Yes, which I haven't seen Beau's Not Afraid, so I'll save my judgment on that. I have, however, seen Hereditary several times. And I hate it.
Yes.
There's so much wrong. And not even in the it's a horror movie, loosen up. No, just in general. There's so much that Hereditary missed the mark on. But I was pleased with Midsommar as long as you are not looking very closely at this man's resources. However, with that stated, he himself was not in charge of the costuming or the prop and sets. He had a general idea and he set his team to work. They did do their research very heavily. 10 out of 10. Best job.
Yeah. But there is a singular featurette on the making of the movie on the DVD, as well as I used vikinger.org for the research.
And there is a plethora of cult specialists who have gone through and looked at this. They have, like, the best language and understanding of it. I highly recommend, if you're interested in how cults work and how they get people, seeing their reviews online. But a lot of what they took and saw, I watched this a second time with their lens on.
Okay.
Which really did change how, like, this movie felt for me. Because when I watched this without their lens, I was in the camp of, go Danny, I'm so proud of you for finding your family. Watching it with this understanding of the cult specialists, it is a lot easier and clearer to see how, like, this is not a, like, good, wholesome thing.
I think I had a framing of the cult specialists in our first viewing of it, so...
Yes.
But Midsommar actually came 5 years before its making, and it started from a bad breakup that Astor was going through. And he said he used folk horror as a setting, as an excuse to exorcise his demons of the time, which kind of pisses me off because it makes the folk horror aspect of Midsommar feel cheapened a little bit.
I can agree with you there. I think he's quoted in one of his interviews as saying that it's a breakup movie lightly dressed in the clothes of folk horror. And I agree with that 100%. However, I do think that the way he handles it is a nice visual. And so, like, if we, again, ignore his poor sources, he accidentally created something very good.
Yeah. I don't know. It just makes him come across as a pompous prick at times.
I agree, and especially since we have gone down the rabbit hole of folk movies recently, and folk horror being one of our favorites, seeing the amount of detail, research, and, like, thought that has gone into a lot of these other ones, especially older ones, it does make the, like, folk part of Midsommar feel cheap. I completely agree with you. But visually, this movie is hard to beat.
I agree on that part, at least.
And something that I will give him credit for is, while he may not have done his research on the actual, like, culture that he was trying to create / represent, depending on, you know, which interview you look up from him, he did do his research on psychedelics very first-handedly.
Shocking.
Yeah, that's one of the few ones that he did first-hand account, and, like, also asked multiple people different experiences, and so that really did, I think, help with a lot of the troubles otherwise this movie would have had.
Okay. Yeah, and I do want to put up front that neither of us are experts on Swedish lore or folklore. Just
no,
I've got a couple books on Scandinavian folklore, but I haven't dived too heavily into the subject myself. So take that with a grain of salt from us, at least.
Definitely. However, something to be note is the costuming and the stage production group, the prop production group. While they were told this was going to be a Sweden-based event, they themselves said pooey to that. And while there is Swedish elements that they included, they also include a ton of Romani influences and also Germanic influences, which are very clear and easy to see.
Yeah. So before we dive into it, Chris, what are we drinking today?
I have tea-flavored water.
I have orange-flavored water because I was lazy and forgot to pick up lemonade.
That's okay.
Cheers.
Cheers.
Mine is kind of colored like a certain body fluid.
I was going to say, this does feel appropriate in its own sort of way for the movie.
Yeah. So, Midsommar.
Yes.
We open on a fairy tale mural that pretty much tells us the story,
It is. It's the whole plot of the story.
More so the key points. It doesn't do all the little bits here and there, but it's kind of like a representational aspect of the folktale, because I know Astor wanted it to be an adult fairy tale counterpart to Hereditary and about family and codependency.
Sure, I can see where those words make sense in the movie. I think a lot of people ended up taking away from this a lot of representation on a very, like, well done toxic relationship and a very well done cult.
Yes.
So, like, he got close. There are those elements there.
Yeah. I do want to point out that the architecture on the mural does not match the architecture that we see later on in the film.
No, I believe that the mural was made earlier in the production set from the pieces that I could put together from trying to find anyone who worked on this sucker. The background people, though, while they did work on this, like, consecutively, like, there wasn't, like, oh, we were filming the end first sort of thing. Like, they filmed, for the most part, on set between summer and fall in Budapest. And so the set people had to deal with that as well. However, something that I want to, like, when you watch it and think about, in the background of her apartment, we open with this, which does do a nice job of laying it all out, but we also open up with a motif of scarecrows. This girl has so many scarecrows in her apartment, and, like, they're not even all the same scarecrow. If it was, like, Wizard of Oz themed apartment, I would be like, okay, a little weird, but alright. The Wizard of Oz themed scarecrow is in there, but there is also, like, 4 or 5 other scarecrows that she just has.
Interesting.
She's got, like, a doll, she has a little picture of one, she's got, like, the Wizard of Oz scarecrow above her fridge. I mean, straw man thrown right in the middle.
I guess...
The prop set did a great job, writer or not.
So what does the scarecrow mean in all of this? Because there's so much in this movie that feels like it's supposed to have meaning, but doesn't really go anywhere, in my opinion.
I agree. I think a lot of the parts that don't manage to make it all the way through are the parts that, like, I'm not gonna lie, are the parts that our director and writer himself stuck in. Whereas with part of the parts that, with the props that I feel like do work, I feel like the scarecrow's a really great representation on, like, a hollow person. It also feels like it comes back later with the dead body stuff with straw that we're going to see incinerated. I didn't do a number count. I didn't check to see if the number of scarecrows in her apartment matches the dead people number.
It's supposed to be like 999.
Yeah, I didn't check that part. Like, I watched it several times. I didn't watch it that many times.
Is it supposed to be like she doesn't have a brain either?
Some people argued that. One reviewer from when this originally came out, who did, like, more of a deep dive review, claimed that the scarecrow is a common representation in, like, romance settings, like, for someone who doesn't have a backbone, isn't really, like, present in the relationship, is really, like, relying on you to prop up the whole thing, which might be a good representation of her current relationship. There's just a lot of potential with a scarecrow, which does all work. They do all fit. And I like that it's never directly, like, placed. It's never directly stated.
It's just kind of a little thing in the background to keep an eye out for.
Exactly.
Okay. Well, before we get to her apartment, we do have cold, snowy winter woods, and we have the suburb and her checking in on her sister and her parents specifically.
Yes.
Which I do wonder if at this point they're supposed to be dead or dying because they're still breathing.
I mean, it does take a few minutes with carbon monoxide to die. Yeah. And you do die a little faster when it's being pumped directly from the car.
Yeah, it just, I don't know. I think with this part he's trying to set up this kind of calm, everything's all right. But at the same time, the way he shoots this movie is there are a lot of on-center shots. Yeah. There's not the standard rule of thirds. It's a lot of just put character in the center or put the action in the center.
And I think because of the very either striking visuals or disturbing visuals, I think it works for this movie, especially because, like, it was not advertised as a gory movie, which is we'll get to. But
yeah.
Part of the thing that I do like about this is the movie does leave enough room for the audience to kind of come to their own conclusions on certain details. And one of the details that some people thought was, like you, that her parents are already dead, and others saw this as, no, her parents are in danger, and if she had tried harder, she could have saved them.
Oh. Just really up in the air on
which I think, like, if you're going to do a deep dive on this and, like, really, like, think about all of the minute things, I think this, like, uncertainty works because it kind of does reflect her uncertainty with, like, later on, especially because right after she gets done, she tries to call her boyfriend, who's like, oh, it's not that big a deal. You're making nothing out of it. Which would, I mean, she's going to think about that conversation for the rest of her life. Yeah,
both of their indecisiveness and inability to make a concrete decision.
Exactly.
Yeah, which, surprise, surprise, her boyfriend's name is Christian, which I think is a little too on the nose.
It's very on the nose, but also he does look like a Christian, so it's not that big a deal.
Yeah, he doesn't look like my brother, but...
No, but, like, he also doesn't look like, like, picking a more interesting name, I think would give him too much interest and credit. Like, I'm not gonna lie, by the time the movie's almost over, you kind of forget what his name is, and that's kind of good. It does dehumanize him a little bit. Yeah. It makes it easier for the audience to be like, yeah, the prick. He's no longer Christian, he's the dick. He's the asshole boyfriend, right?
He's literally the dick for someone.
Exactly. So, like, I do think that, like, him having a very generic, standard, run-of-the-mill name honestly works, whereas hers, with Danny, both fits the Swedish vibes a little better, because we're going to hear a lot of very Swedish accented people try to say her name. Mm-hmm. And on top of that, like, it's short, it's sweet, it's to the point, whereas his is kind of like, whatever. But if he'd had a cool name, I don't think it would have had the same effect.
I agree with that. But also at this time, he's trying to be vulnerable, she's trying to be vulnerable, yes. That's right. But also strong at the same time, again, going into her indecisiveness. And to be fair, Christian is being logical, like, he is being...
Yes and no. Okay, so this is the part where I think if you're going to deep dive, Danny is a great one to do it on, mm-hmm. because she makes it very clear that her sister is bipolar and has had a history of episodes, and that's why she's worried. And her support system, the person who's supposed to be there to, like, not just be the sound reasoner, but also to, like, be the one to help, does downplay that a lot.
Okay.
Like, it's made very clear in their conversation that she's worried that her sister has done something to hurt herself or to hurt her parents, and what should she do? And he goes, well, that's just how she is.
Yeah.
Not the best response when you have someone who is actively possibly hurting themselves.
Yeah, but at the same time, I feel that the little we've had of the discourse between them, it seems like for pretty much every single time, this is an act. So... It doesn't matter, though.
Yeah, I know. And like, that's something that, like, I do think this movie takes the modern interpretation of that for a horror film, as opposed to, like, historical ones where the lady is more hysterical, there's a lot more, like, played-up drama. Midsommar purposefully takes the opposite approach of that. Like, I mean, Aster has several times in his interviews with this movie declared that, like, Christian was meant to be a manipulative prick. He was meant to be, like, this was meant to be an example of an abusive relationship to an extent. And he also made it very clear that, like, he wasn't necessarily going to be throwing bits out without meaning them to an extent.
Yeah.
And I know later on that does come back to bite him.
Oh, yeah.
But I think this part, like, has the most thought and purpose put into it.
I think there's the intent, but from the dialogue, I know it's reading into it that it's supposed to be worrying, but at the same time, she's not making any indication that, like, she's like, oh, this one's different. It's like, but we don't have a normal to set it to. You're just telling us it's different. So,
sure.
I mean, it doesn't really. Here's what I think it is. It's more so this portion of the movie is just to give our first shock moment, because that's something that will come up in this movie. There's
a lot of shock moments.
There's not really like a lot of buildup. It just kind of like, boom, shock. Okay, back to the movie. I think that's what this buildup is, to be like, okay, this isn't going to be your normal horror film, but I think it's more so set up to really establish that Danny's alone, that she doesn't have the support. She's calling her parents aren't picking up, her boyfriend picks up, he's not supportive, definitely doesn't have the support of her sister, obviously.
No, and it's one of those things where, like, I think also when you're not prepared for this scene, like, we've seen this movie now a good number of times, enough to no longer be surprised by anything.
Yeah.
This opening scene, though, I do think surprised a lot of people. Because a lot of us, especially if you're a horror fan, you can get over surprise gore. I understand not everyone likes it, but, like, it's one of those things that, like, as a horror person, you kind of expect, does this one try its damnedest to get you the shock factor of gore? Sure. However, I think this opening scene was the reason a lot of people should have, this should have had a different
marketing.
Yes. because we watched this, and while we were leaving the theaters, one of our other friends who likes horror texted me and was like, oh, I've been wanting to see that. The trailer looks cool. And I had to text back and be like, no, you don't want to watch this one. And if you do, wait for it to come out on DVD, and you need to skip the first 30 minutes. Because the opening, however the director and writer wanted it to go, however he meant it to go, it hit very close to home for a lot of people.
Yeah, I can see that.
Like there's a difference between horror gore and, like,
emotional damage.
And emotional damage. And this one got a little bit close for something that was meant to be released in major theaters and wasn't, like, one of, like, because other ones we found, we have to hunt down. We have, like, there's something that, like, in a certain circles, you know about them, people talk about them, but they're not a run-of-the-mill everyday horror. This one was advertised as run-of-the-mill everyday horror. Maybe.
A24's magic at that point.
Yeah.
Yeah, but, okay, I see where you're coming from that, but I still think it's weak.
I agree. I think he's trying to go for the surprise shock factor. But if that's the case, there's better ways to do it.
Exactly. Because immediately we get to the brother, or not the brothers, the bros on the other side who...
I mean, kind of.
don't like Danny.
No, they're kind of useless.
Yeah, they don't really serve much of a point other than to bring them there and be cannon fodder.
I will say, I do appreciate that instead of having, like, a balanced group of, like, oh, there's equal numbers and, like, maybe only one of them is actually a couple. Like, this is a pretty, like, guy-heavy group. I like that for a horror film. It's much more entertaining to watch a bunch of, like, assholes that I don't like be hunted down.
Yeah.
That's more entertaining, let's be real.
Yeah, well, and I mean, this scene is mainly to set up that Christian's kind of not really playing the field, but keeping his eyes open.
Yeah, he's clearly taking their long-term relationship real seriously.
Yeah, it's to show his indecisiveness, both in his work and romance, because they do bring up the Swedish trip, and that he still needs to think about his thesis, / hey, you could break up with Danny and you could have scored with that chick, or hey, you could find someone who fits you better.
Also, as someone who, like, has done a thesis, the fact that they're having, like, this is a study group for them to be actively working on their thesis, and they're like, have you even picked one yet, man? He's like, nah, I haven't done it. That gives me so much anxiety. You're not going to graduate.
Well, that's the thing. I don't know if they are 100% at that level, because the Swede in the group doesn't do it, and the other horny bro dude. Like, they seem to just kind of be there, or they just seem to be side friends.
It doesn't seem, though, that the Swedish student is just a foreign exchange student. Depending on what college you're at, they get a lot of different regulations. I know we had one during our master's thesis who didn't have to do her thesis because she was having another year back at her home country where that's when she was going to have to do that. I've also had some that, like, they'd already passed their thesis. This was just, like, the fun semester abroad that they needed as a requirement.
Oh, okay.
So, and then what's the other guy doing? Honestly, I'm not sure he goes to college.
He's just there to try and hook up.
He's just there to hang out with college girls.
Yeah. A little bit more acceptable than, what's his name? In Dazed and Confused. All right.
Yeah, but it's giving the same vibes.
Just a bit. He's kind of that creepy dude who's just only there to try and get laid.
He's definitely the creepy friend who, like, if these other guys, like, one of them does have another girlfriend, like, that girlfriend's not comfortable being around that guy.
Yeah.
Like, he's just a bit too much.
Exactly. But from here we get screechy music, and now we get the big reveal of the murder-suicide. And I do like the pairing of the cold Blake Winter. I mean, it fits quite well.
Also, glad you brought up the music. The music for this was done by Bobby, I'm gonna butcher this, Kurlick. His band name is called Hexen Cloak.
Hexen.
Yes.
Hexen Cloak. We know this.
Yeah. And he did the music before the movie was done. So as he was writing and filming this, he had the music to set this to, and I think it did help. There are certain scenes that I think are a little corny, a little overdone. Okay. We're about to get to them. Yes. But, like, overall, the music's 10 out of 10 for this. It's all Nordic folk music styled. Like, fantastic. It sounds so good.
Yeah, like, it's a bit droney at times.
It is, but I think that helps with the drugs later.
But we also get that Christian's just kind of going through the motions again. She's grieving on him instead of like he's there.
He is the most useless human.
Yeah.
Like, break up already. Please. It would do everyone some good.
Yeah.
Stop stringing her along.
Yeah.
He's literally the reason that she is going to Sweden.
Pretty much. But I do like that in the first 12 minutes we have everything set up, the entire dynamic, and then we have 2 hours of movie left still.
And I like also that, like, we're given everyone's place in the movie without anyone being too stereotypical. Like, this is a very stereotypical setting, but we don't have the stereotypical, like, virgin. We don't have the stereotypical jock. We just have a bunch of assholes.
Yeah.
And Danny.
Who's
also, at times, also a bit of a dick.
Yeah. No, she's
has her
just
moments.
as guilty as the rest of the group, too.
She definitely has her moments, that's for sure.
Yes. But we do have a good jump to green and no snow. Good way to do a time leap without, like, saying 12 months later or something like that.
I also kind of like that we're not given, like, hard time set, because especially with the psychedelic elements that are, like, almost immediately brought into the movie, I think it kind of helps having, like, a skewed idea of time. Because, like, we know that there's this festival. We assume that it's happening when the rest of the world celebrates Midsommar, but we really don't know that.
Yeah, I mean, we have a rough idea when this is happening in a relatively quick time frame, because if I remember right, with the guys, they're talking about that they're going to be going to Sweden in, like, 2-3 months, something like that. So we are given a timeline.
But it's not like a hard and fast rule that I have to worry about. Like, the days bleed together, and I love that.
Yeah. And I think it's a good way to show without saying a timeline, because Danny's obviously still not doing well. She's sleeping through the day.
She's having a terrible time.
Yeah, she's sleeping right up to when they're supposed to go into a party, which...
I don't know if I'd be going to that party, and not gonna lie. I'm gonna be sleeping on that bed the whole time.
Yeah, but she's trying to be there for Christian, who obviously didn't take the leap and is still with her, but also...
is not being useful or good or helpful.
No, he's going off to live his life while she's stuck alone. Again, no support.
Yes.
And from here we go on to the party, which it does again show her going through the motions, but she catches back into the fold when she hears that Christian is going to Hausinglad for their trip in 2 weeks.
Yeah. Didn't even bother to mention that, did he?
No.
Yeah, rude.
Yeah, but I like that she's just going through the motions, but what catches her eye or catches her ear is when Christian's brought up.
Yeah, like, she clearly still has feelings for him, and he is stringing her along.
Yes. But I do also like at this moment that Pele, the Swede, looks at Danny knowing that she doesn't know, which is the start of subtly putting that Pele is kind of looking out for Danny, or, like, looking at her in a way that Christian's ignoring her.
So this is something that, from a cult standpoint, this is, like, one of the beginning signs of having the feelers go out, trying to find people who are going to be a good fit as far as, like, mentally ready to handle it, also having a big change in their life.
Are weak and vulnerable and open to suggestions.
And have no support system. No one's coming to look for Danny. No one's going to be calling, asking where she is. The only people who would have are now dead. Yeah. And Christian, honestly, like, if she had stayed and he did somehow, like, escape, surprise, he doesn't. Like, he wasn't going to be checking in on her.
Yeah, no, not at all. But yeah, it just makes me think of It's Always Sunny in Philadelphia. We'll take her out to the countryside of Sweden. She won't resist because of the implications.
To me, this reminded me a lot of the stories of the Manson girls and them going out in the town trying to find people to, like, bring home, like, quote unquote, bring home.
Flirty fishing.
Yes. But, like, there's something more to, like, because a different cult was, like, really known for the flirty fishing, right? Like, that was their big thing, was, we're gonna get you hooked and then bring you back. Whereas, like, a lot of these other ones do just promise, like, oh, well, just come out for a little bit. Come hang out for a little bit. Oh, we're such a family here.
Yeah.
We are concerned. We noticed you. We noticed you when no one else was.
Yeah, it's a lot. That's how you get, like, a lot of those religious cults of, like, oh, well, nothing else in your life has worked, so why don't you try us now? Like, Shinrikyo had that same issue. But then, like, you have, like, in the 60s and 70s, you have the drug cults where it's like, oh, we got a guru who's gonna teach us the way because he knows, he's so cosmic and groovy, dude.
And while this one does, thankfully, skirt, or because there's clearly elders in this movie, but they do skirt around it in such a way that, like, it does present in, like, an introductor sort of level. Like, the movie handles this so nicely that you're suspicious of him because he is the outsider, but at the same time, he is also the only one to notice that Danny's, like, not having a great time at this party.
Yeah.
Christian isn't being, like, hey, or even earlier, I noticed Christian's not, like, you and Christian don't seem to be doing so good. Like, how are you? And, like, for someone in Danny's position, that's a lot.
Yeah, no, exactly. Because, we go back home and your boy Christian's in trouble.
God damn it, Christian.
Another horror film where communication would have helped, but yeah, well, obviously we wouldn't have a story.
You know what? Therapy in general would solve a lot of horror movies, but we don't have time for that.
Yeah, and sorry's not enough, which...
Especially because it sounds like he has done this rigmarole before. Not in the, like, I'm disappearing to Sweden way, but in the, like, I'm planning stuff and I forgot to tell you.
Yeah.
AKA, I didn't want you to go, but I also didn't want you to say no.
Yeah, exactly. And she's just kind of there in a chore.
Yes.
Which I do like in the background. There is a big photo of a dude who looks frustrated, which,
yes,
again,
it's kind of funny.
I think he's a little too on the nose at times where it's just...
Sure, there's definitely moments. I do like that, like, one of the paintings in the background here is also the little girl and the bear. You see it again earlier above her, like, daybed couch thing. And, like, it's a painting where the little girl almost looks like she's dressed up like a princess. And that also, like, it's very on the nose, but it also feels so right.
That part feels right.
The frustrated man, I agree, is a little bit much, but also the rest of the decorations in this movie make no sense, so, like, he's not out of place.
Yeah, which later on I have a note of, like, I love how they portray, like, college kids, and, like, especially thesis college kids, where they're so into their work that nothing else in the world matters.
I love
their
that
books are piled up in bad stacks.
I love that they show thesis kids who are not, chugging 18 Red Bulls and haven't slept in several days. Like, these are fairly balanced and normal children.
Yeah.
Good job.
But now we get back to the bros who are planning, where...
I love their idea of planning, too, because clearly, like, this is a bro trip where, like, very little has actually been planned. They've bought tickets, like, they remembered they need passports, and that's kind of it. Yeah.
Well, and also Pele's insistent that and this is where he's, like, you can start to see kind of his standpoint where he's very insistent that they go back to his home right away and don't go anywhere else.
Yes, but it's also funny because, like, none of them bother to argue with him, like, almost at all.
No.
Like, can you imagine, like, in your college days, you had the opportunity to go visit Sweden, but the condition was you couldn't go anywhere else but this one tiny town?
It's a bit suspicious.
That'd be a bit suspicious, and also I'd be like, okay, we can go to your tiny town, but also, like, I'm not wasting my money to fly abroad just to see your parents. I'm sure they're lovely. However, I'm gonna tourist the heck out of this. I'm gonna see this is just how you, like, travel, especially, like, for the, like, college-age kids that they're trying to portray.
Yeah. But also, Christian's logic of, hey, I invited Danny, but she said sure, or I said it was all your idea, but she's not really gonna come. She's gonna say no. It's like, this is just really bad. Like
yeah, also, like, what an asshole move to be like, I invited her knowing damn well that she was in the middle of grieving her parents' and sister's death, but, like, she also is definitely gonna say no.
Yeah.
Like, he didn't do this genuinely. He didn't, like, truly want her to get out of her rut, see something new for a little bit, like, be somewhere that's gonna be beautiful, surrounded by nature while she's having this problem. No, he's just like, well, I invited her because she made me.
Yeah, pretty much. It's like, I had to invite her, guys, but she's gonna say no.
Instead of, like, a girlfriend, this feels like I had to bring my little sister, guys.
Yes.
Like, this doesn't feel like a relationship at all.
Yeah, no, not at all. I mean, I guarantee you they're not banging, so it's...
I'm sure they are, but not because he likes her, but because she's convenient.
Yeah, I can see that.
Yeah, like, Christian definitely strikes me as the type of guy that, like, if he found someone else to even remotely be interested, he would not break up with Danny. He'd string her along continuously, because what if the other girl doesn't work out?
True.
That's the type of guy Christian is.
The break up and still stay friends.
Uh-huh. Mm-hmm.
Yeah, I can see that. Also, I mean, there's a bit in this too where I don't get the importance of focusing on Pele drawing the table.
I think
like
there was meant to be more of an emphasis on jobs and roles in this.
Mm-hmm.
And the reason I say that is the prop and costume department clearly had direction that jobs were going to be an important part of, like, the cult and the village's like foundation. Something that they pulled from a bunch of different sources, and so they went out of their way to, like, hand embroider into, like, the cultist clothes, like, what their symbol was going to be, what their family ties were supposed to be. So I do think that, like, this detail is part of something bigger that either then got cut or wasn't written in a useful way.
I think it's just to show that Pele can draw. Because he brings it up a couple more times where he's drawing, but it doesn't really... I know what it is. He feels like the photographer from The Wicker Man.
Okay.
Where...
And later, like, it is pointed out that other Maydays, he has photos of it. Because doesn't he, like, show Danny, like, oh, this was last year's May Queen. Yeah,
but he's also drawing the portrait of her later on. So I think that's kind of, like, what they're supposed to...
I also think that, like, especially knowing that Aster wanted this to be almost, like, so close to a romance that it then turns horror. Like, from Danny's standpoint, having a guy who has a hobby like drawing would be much more interesting and appealing than Christian's current hobby, which appears to be nothing.
Yeah. Just existing. Being one of the bros.
Doesn't even play Call of Duty.
No. But also, Pele's role at this point is interesting. Because
I agree. I like that he starts very awkward.
Yes, because part of what his role is to kind of, you start to see him start easing Danny into the idea where he's like, you know, our tradition, we have a bit of pageantry. Last year we had here's what our May Queen was like, yada, yada, yada. Like, he's kind of like, and from a movie standpoint, he's introducing us to Midsommar if we don't know about it. But also introducing Danny to the concept at the same time.
Yeah.
While showing sympathy towards her.
I also like that and also just from a general setup, like, we get a lot of very big shocks in this film. But what to expect with the cult is not one of them. They are exactly as, like, advertised, right? Like, we see a picture of, like, the traditional clothes. He's like, yeah, we have some traditional garb. We're a small village out in the middle of nowhere. You know, we don't do much, but we have this one thing. And we get to see it. It's essentially exactly as advertised.
Yeah. No, exactly. And he is very awkward because he brings up death real quick.
Yeah. But I kind of like that he's a bit awkward, though, because it does make him more palatable to the audience later on. Because right now, Christian's an ass, but, like, we're seeing this all from Danny's point of view. So he's an ass, he's a dick, but he's not the worst.
No.
Like, it feels tolerable if you're, like, ignoring the red flags, right? Like, if you haven't seen the movie already, or if you haven't been with someone like Christian before, it's all passable for right now. And this guy's a little awkward, he's a little weird, but he's also charming. He's a little different.
Yeah.
And it will eventually we're going to snowball on those personality traits.
Pele feels like that meme of regular party and then the bowling random facts about serial killers.
Yes.
Just that
but
kind of
at the same time, like, that sort of, like, awkwardness will play into him well later when he's no longer, like, when he's in his element, when he's back in the village and he's no longer, like, the weird exchange student. He's now her tether to, like, he's the introduction to the rest of the village.
Yeah. Which, we do get a cool transition to the plane. I do question Danny's motivation a little bit in this, whether it's trying to portray her as strong, but she's also so codependent on Christian, she's following him like a lost puppy.
I'm going to go with following him like a lost puppy from the standpoint of the interviews I found with the costuming department. Mm-hmm. They purposefully, from the moment her parents die until she gets to the village and gets her, like, new, quote-unquote, new clothes, Danny is purposefully dressed in too big of baggy clothes. Mm-hmm. And one of the designers even called them, like, pajamas. Like, they essentially, like, put her in pajamas the entire time. Yeah. And Danny's a cute girl. Like, she, as a college kid, probably is not living, like, this is probably not the only thing she has in her closet. She doesn't really want to be going, but she doesn't want to be home alone. She's being drug along to Sweden, to the village in the middle of the mountains in Sweden. And so she packed what was comfortable. It's the only thing she'd probably been wearing for the last several weeks.
Sweets.
Baggy
fit versus fit.
Yeah, these are the baggy ones.
Yeah. I mean, we do get onto Sweden, which, I mean, we're there pretty quickly.
Okay, the camera angles, the first time you watch this, kind of cool. The second time you watch it, sickening. Stop.
Yeah, I think it's him trying to show Lost and Upside Down, but it just...
I agree, but, like, again, this came out in 2019. Mm-hmm. Like, this camera angle to show, like, oh, we're going into the world where logic doesn't work. Like, it has been done. It has been used. A lot of people claim online that, like, during the background of, like, the flying and in the trees, they claim they can see faces.
I couldn't.
I can't find them either. However, there are faces later in this movie. That would have been better. Yeah. That would have been better to just lean in from the beginning and be like, yes, there are faces in the mountains, there's faces in the trees as they're driving past. Because it's an element that you're going to tie in later anyway.
Yeah.
As opposed to making me seasick by flipping the camera around.
Cue Fresh Prince of Bel-Air.
A little.
Got flip turned upside down, baby.
A little bit. It's a little cheesy.
On top of that, they stop in the middle of a field where...
I'm glad you also noticed that they just, like, park the car in the middle of the road.
It's just really awkward because Paley gets out and is like... Or no, he gets out and he's like, oh, I'm going to go talk to that person. And then the one friend who has no purpose at all in this movie, he's like, think he knows that guy? It's like,
yes,
no.
Of course he fucking does. This is a small town. They know everyone.
Yeah, you're all going to the same spot. But I also think it's funny how we have these movies where we go to other countries for our spiritual trips instead of, like, across our country at all.
Oh, yeah, no, because, like, don't get me wrong. I've been to the Alps. They are beautiful. Mm-hmm. We also have mountains here, and you can get high on them here.
Yeah, no, exactly.
We also have a lot of cults. Honestly, we might have more cults here.
Yeah, I'd say pound for pound, America has more cults than most countries.
And because of the laws in Colorado, home of one of the many beautiful mountains, there is a large number of cults. So you could do all of this in Colorado, but it wouldn't be foreign and it wouldn't be exotic, and you wouldn't feel like you can't escape.
Or you can go to the Appalachians and...
That's not really a cult. That's just a family problem.
Fall into the H.P. Lovecraft cult.
Yeah. I think that's just a way of life. It's not really a cult.
Yeah. But also, we're already 3 hours... We're in here 3 hours and we're doing drugs? Like...
Honestly, you know, why not? They're college kids, okay? Like...
Yeah.
Like, as someone who had those friends in college, any excuse to get high is a good enough excuse. And this is a beautiful field where there's already people getting high.
Yeah.
So, like, I'm not totally thrown out of the blue. I also think that it is better to get the shock of how much drugs are going to be involved now, as opposed to waiting later and have Danny, like, being surprised.
Yeah, it's kind of indoctrinating her, like, hey, if you don't like it this way, we've got it this other way.
Yes. Now, I do think they go a little hard here. Mm-hmm. Because, like...
It's light trippy.
Yeah, while the visuals are very pretty and very cool, the movie's not badly paced. It's just a tad bit long at times. Mm-hmm. And this is one of the scenes that feels like we could have, like, maybe sped this up a bit.
Yeah, it's just a lot of her freaking out, and, like, I think...
I do appreciate the dead sister and the binger behind her. Mm-hmm. That's cool.
Yeah.
And again, like, we could have had more dead sister faces throughout the whole movie. Would have loved that.
Make it a little bit more about that instead of kind of forgetting here that she's dealing with the loss of her family, like, 30 minutes into this movie.
Okay, so when people say they can see faces in the background, her sister's face is one that most people point to. Mm-hmm. And that's something that's canon. Like, in this scene, it is her. Later on in the woods scene, that is her sister's face again. However, I think that it was meant to be more of a motif, and I honestly think the writer forgot.
Exactly.
I really do. I really think he honestly forgot.
Yeah. Well, also, I mean, there's some other stuff in this movie, too. Like, there's no jet lag. They all seem to be doing very well, adjusted to the time zone change.
I would have appreciated everyone else having jet lag. I'm okay with Dani continuing to be herself, because I imagine Dani's sleep schedule has been shit.
Yeah.
But, like, she's been jet lagged for weeks. Not because she traveled anywhere, but because she's had the worst depression. She's having a terrible time in life right now. I'm okay with her and her appearance. I agree, though. The one that, like, somehow knows too much about everything that's happening here and doesn't share with the class, and then the useless one, those two need to be tireder.
Mark's just a comedic relief. That's all he's here for. He's just there to be the one guy who makes the dick and tit jokes.
This is true, and honestly, when he is on screen, I'm not gonna lie, his jokes aren't that funny.
No.
There are a couple of lines that the mic picks up while he's just off screen or just coming onto screen that are funny, but, like, that's it. Yeah,
it's not really...
It's not like... He's a very unforgettable character.
He's kind of like the Shaggy of the group.
Yeah, but at least...
But not iconic.
No, yeah, no. Like, to the point where almost the minute he dies, you forget what he looks like.
Yeah, pretty much. But I also don't get the setup of this part, too, because we see, like, so many other fellow people with them, and we only see 2 other outsiders. Like, do they... talk and say, hey, we got a group of 5 people. We've got a group of 2. No one else got to bring anyone else this year.
The other thing that's kind of weird, and this is a very nitpicky thing, but it is something that is hard to ignore, is there are background people here and then coming up in the next, like, 2 scenes. There's, like, quote-unquote normal people. Mm-hmm. They're wearing normal clothes. They're clearly not part of the cult. And then they kind of just stop existing. They just kind of disappear, and it's not, like, I'm not gonna scrub this film to see if they've, like, put on the cult clothes and are, like, living their lives in the background, or if they're dead. I'm assuming they're dead, or have, like, left. I'm gonna go with left, because, like, we've already got all the dead people we need. We got the house full.
It's a 3-hour trip back.
Yeah, honestly, not that far.
By car.
We're from the Midwest. That's not that far.
I mean, they're walking back at that point, though.
I would do it. I think when your options are to be stuffed inside a bear skin or to walk down the mountain, I'm gonna walk down the mountain. It's not that bad.
The bear skin.
True. But then caught on fire?
Yeah.
Not my favorite activity on a weeknight. But
weekend activity, but...
I mean, it depends. How busy was my Friday? But...
Yeah,
but something that, like, has bothered me, and it bothered me, honestly, when we watched this in theaters, is that none of the foreign people talk to each other outside of their little bubble, and it's not like the cult is keeping them apart. They all sleep in the same big room. It's shown that they all eat dinner together. They're all sat next to each other, too, and no one leans over and goes, so where are you from?
Yeah.
Which is the most, like, white people abroad thing to do.
No, that's actually pretty accurate.
This is, like... Even if you are amongst people who, like, visually appear the same to you, if you hear someone speaking English, you will swim through a sea of tourists and be like, where are you from? I'm from Missouri. Well, and then you spend 30 minutes and you make some friends and you chat with them online.
I think it's also to show their disinterest, because that doesn't matter to them where they're from. They're just there.
I agree. It's one of those things where I feel like there was meant to be a background explanation to all these people, and, like, more clues dropped, and they were dropped in favor of shock.
And just the main cast.
Yeah, which isn't the worst, but then why are they there? They're very distracting, too. It's not like they're, like, blending in.
No, not at all. But the trip's over for Dani, and now we're off to the village of Hargis.
Oh, boy.
They're really trying hard to make this feel out of the way, and I mean, it is a cool entrance to the village, very sun-like.
It is. I mean, it's pretty. This village is pretty.
I do wonder if this is maybe his nod to the Wicker Man, where they're praying to the sun.
Okay, I'm glad you mentioned that, because, like, the art group, when, like, showing their inspiration for this, were all showing, like, historical elements, which we know the Wicker Man based a lot of itself off of to an extent.
Yeah.
Because, like, there's only so far back you can go with
and
Wicca.
The Golden Bough that they based it heavily off of is heavily criticized. It's a very artsy interpretation of witchcraft.
Yes. And so, like, I like...
Or cultism.
I like this version that Midsommar has come up with because it reminds me vaguely of, like, looking at some of the American religions that, like, live in a very particular way and not understanding them but seeing them as beautiful.
The Amish.
The Amish are a very good example where, like, if you don't understand, if you don't know, it's very easy to Pinterest board that lifestyle. This feels very similar because Danny doesn't know, it just looks nice.
Yeah, no, exactly. It feels very I say this in all sincerity that it feels very cheesy Ren Fair-like at times.
At times. I will say that it does lack the spontaneity that Ren Fairs come with.
Yeah, I mean...
It's a very cohesive Ren Fair.
Yeah.
Good for them.
But especially, like, with the dudes walking up and playing music as they enter, and then on top of that, we see them following groups of people afterwards.
That is hilarious, and it is very Ren Fair, and I like that.
Yeah, it just... I don't know if it's supposed to be comedic or not, because, like,
it is hard to tell with this writer and director.
Mm-hmm.
Because some things that he writes, clearly he means for it to be funny, is not humorous at all. It's just kind of in there and in the way. And then other times he means things in a very serious way. And it's just kind of a giggle. It's a good giggle.
Well, and it's immediately...
And honestly, like, this whole village is a bit of a giggle.
Yeah, well, I mean, it's immediately paired with just awkward conversation or what's supposed to be awkward conversation where, like, Pele's dad's talking about, like, or father figure. We find out this is kind of his dad, adopted dad.
Yeah, ish.
Where he's bringing up Ymir, which is a Nordic god, and nature's hermaphroditic qualities, which we do kind of see that in some of the older pagan stuff.
Yeah, I'm not gonna lie. For a town that's made up, and a people made up, and a cult made up, I kind of wish the gods were made up too.
I do. Well, I do too, because here's the thing. There's so much shit that gets made up, because Josh is really after them with 20 questions about their traditions.
Is he fucking ever?
And if they tie to the other cultures, like the Shika saints from Virjabahumi, which again, couldn't find anything. Completely made up, which kind of pisses me off, which...
A little bit, but also I kind of want literally the rest of this to all also be made up.
Yeah, no, exactly. I wanted to go into that Lovecraftian realm of these fake cults where they've got all these ties to these other ancient bullshit.
And honestly, like, they did a good job with the naming system. It sounds fluid. Like, the names of everyone feel... Like, no one feels out of place. It's not like you're walking along and they're like, this is my Swedish town. We're cut off from the rest of civilization. These are all my friends, and this one's name is Bob. Like, you don't have that problem. Everything's named very fluidly. And yet it feels like we ran out of creativity when it comes to, like, old gods and the runes that they use. Which, like, if you're gonna lean in, do all of it one or all the other way, is kind of my idea.
I mean, I recently learned that Tim is a common name in, like, Holland.
I mean, Tim, sure.
I know, it threw me off too.
I mean, sure, but, like, I don't know, it's one of those things where there are some elements that, like, again, he did very light research when it came to this.
Yeah.
So, like, some of the runes in the background could work depending on which definition or understanding you're going from, and then sometimes you're like, we could have just made up our own symbol.
Yeah.
We could have just made up our own and, like, plastered it a few places.
I'll get into that in a bit, because now it's time for some exposition of the festival, and pretty much the only time we hear them speak Swedish, because she's giving this big speech, and then she's like, oh, yes, for our foreign visitors, which, here's the thing, think about this.
Mm-hmm.
They specifically target Americans and Brits, because they have to be able to translate to someone else. They're not going to pick up someone from Germany or go to Russia or...
That'd be too close. You want someone from far away who can't leave.
True.
So, like, from this movie's cult understanding, that's what the thought process is. However, we know for a goddamn fact that, like, within the same state, like, from one side of Texas to the other is far enough for some people.
Just go down far enough to South America. That's far enough away.
I mean, honestly, like, the number of people who do get pulled into real cults who are less than an hour's drive from family and friends, like, and yet they still feel like they are completely isolated, like they can't go and call for help, they can't even get away. We know we don't have to travel, international flights to get to this level. However, like, it does for the audience, like, who is sitting there in a rational mind looking at this from the outside, not in Danny's shoes, this does help bridge that understanding.
Yeah, but it's also kind of really dumb too, because we are in a modern era. We do see from the phones that it's... I'm going to say it's roughly 2019 when this movie's set.
I think it's meant to be, yeah.
They've got passports. If anyone knows, like, it's like, okay, these person traveled together. Like, they traveled with this one Swedish dude that went missing.
Yeah, like if you're going to go missing on a passport isn't the best way to go missing.
No.
Yeah, you're right.
Yeah.
But, like, from a movie standpoint, I get why they did it. And also, like, it does help with, like, the why no one has noticed this cult in the mountains. It's less that no one's noticed and more like people have kind of sort of acknowledged their existence and kind of moved on.
Yeah, or don't even know.
Yeah.
Yeah, which we do get the explanation that it's been 90 years since the Great Feast, which I don't...
It's a long time for a feast.
I don't know the timeline of this stuff because I don't know if this is supposed to be like that Super Hunger Games where they bring back the great of the greats from the last games.
Because clearly this isn't a quote-unquote secret, like, village.
No, it is a secret village. They had to walk to get there.
They did have to walk to get there, but, like, it's not completely like, oh, once only in 90 years do we ever leave. Like, they clearly leave regularly. Like, they say they're cut off from the outside world. They have phones.
Yeah.
Like, they have passports.
They bring stuff to market.
They have plenty of people who speak English as a second language. Like, they are clearly, like, living outside of the world, but they have not completely isolated themselves.
Yeah.
So, like, I am taking this as meaning they have a normal-ass May festival every year, and then every 90 years we have to murder people. That's my interpretation.
I don't know about that, because the lore really just falls apart once you start putting dates to stuff.
I completely agree. I do, however, like I don't exactly like the 90-year thing, but they do give, like, hard numbers for, like, what age range they see people. Like, what age range is a child, what is a young adult, what is a mid-ranged adult or a fall adult, and then, like, winter being the last part of your life. And there's a hard cutoff for how old you can be in this village.
Yeah.
74. So 90 years means that no one remembers the last one.
Yeah, which I did do some looking at what was going on history-wise.
Sure, why not?
Because I'm a nerd. The last time this happened, the world had just got out of World War One. Sweden was neutral during this time. We got to bring that up. But, I mean, there were still food shortages. They had civil unrest.
It impacted them.
Workers' revolutions. Women got the right to vote. Like,
yeah, Sweden went through a lot of changes.
Yeah. Also, to note, just fun little side trivia.
I love it.
Film-wise, SF Studio, formerly known as Svensk Filmindustri, was the production company behind Hexen that was founded that year. So
a good date then.
Yeah.
But yeah, I think the goal of the number wasn't necessarily to, like, make sense and more to say, like, none of them actually remember the last time this happened, but it wasn't so long ago that no one remembers you have to stuff people inside the yellow house.
Yeah. It doesn't really...
No, the math doesn't math, but you do come out at a good answer.
Yeah, it's fun.
Yeah, it's a fun answer.
Yeah. But also, I like that Josh is like, can I take photos? Yes, but do it discreetly. And he's the only dude with the camera out. Like, he's not even, like, trying to pretend. He's just like, click, 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 click.
I have beef with Josh. And not because of, like, him being interested in the cult or the village or even, like, being the one to take pictures. It's the fact that he is the only college student in 2019, because we're assuming this came out at least within a few years of that, based off of phones. Like, nobody else is bothering to take a photo. Nobody else is out here, like...
Well, if we go a little bit
considering to change their thesis to this trip to Sweden that they're doing...
Well,
I would have.
Some of them don't seem like they're on the thesis. They're just on a cool journey.
I would have written so many fucking papers about this. I would have gotten so much extra credit for this trip.
Also, bullshit on your, we have to go far away. They grab people from England.
They do. I would argue that for England, English people's idea of distance is very different than ours.
Yeah.
This to them is a long trip, I think.
I don't.
Whereas we consider 8+ hours a long trip.
I mean, that's just Europe in general.
Yeah, but again, we've already talked about how you really don't have to go far for it to feel like you're isolated.
No.
The movie just needs a cool setting.
Exactly. But we also get the inbred prophet. It's just this...
Yeah, okay, I don't love inbred prophet, partially because I don't think their face model, their prosthetics that they shoved this person into to portray inbreed, I don't think it's a good one.
It feels very, David Lynch Elephant Man.
And here's the reason why I don't love it. We have, in America, the greatest nation, fantastic examples of what inbreeding does to people. We have whole towns that are very inbred. We know what this looks like, and not even from the European chin, what is it,
Habsburg jaw.
We're past that. We have a town of people who are blue. We know what it can do, and it looks different. It looks scary. It doesn't look like this though. And so, I agree. I think the writer and director was going for inbred child, not just, deformed child. This was going for inbred child. Purposefully created inbred child to have the weird prophet child.
Yeah.
And we went with this design.
Yeah.
I don't love it.
No.
There are better examples in the real world, and that makes me sad.
Yeah, fun news, or maybe not so fun news. The most inbred family in America just also had another.
Yeah, I saw that too. I watched the interview.
Yeah,
they're fascinating. They could have been part of this movie.
Yeah,
but I also understand why they're not. There's no good way to do this. But this also wasn't the answer.
No,
because this just kind of puts a very obvious visual flag where we needed something a little bit more subtle.
Yeah, again, it's just throwing little bits of shock to try and get you riled up.
Well, and instead of the town treating this person as the prophet, they shove them Harry Potter style in the broom closet, and they're we don't look at them. Well, which makes no sense.
Yeah, and on top of that, they're just kind of off to the corner of the stage doodling away.
Which, I mean, fine. You put the kid in the corner, we give him some crayons.
Mm-hmm.
But at no point, if they did not explicitly tell you this is our beloved prophet, they foresee the future.
Mm-hmm.
We worked so hard to get this inbred child, you have no idea.
Yeah.
If they had not verbally said that in the movie, I would have no clue what this person was for.
No.
I would have no clue that this was supposed to be a revered prophet.
Well, and we don't even get that explanation for another 30 minutes.
No, this is, again, I feel like the prophet is the weakest link, other than, the background characters. Yeah. But they're not really important. Prophet character is the one who says who dies.
Yeah. But we also get, after this, we get a brief bit of Maya getting ready. And I think it's only, really to show away that she's immediately interested in Christian. And
I like that they give her some personality, as opposed to, just letting Christian be the worst, which he is. But, I like that there is room for, if you are if you're the first time watching this and you're not looking at Christian's red flags and how he's the worst, seeing she tempted him. She saw him and was that's the one. I'm gonna make that one mess up, break up with his girlfriend.
I wonder if it was more of a setup for later on when they explain that occasionally they have to bring new people in.
Yes, no, I think from a writing standpoint, it is.
Yeah, and we also get this little bit of they're playing a game called Skin the Fool, which, as far as I can tell, is another made-up game, and maybe a tie later on, and maybe a little bit of a nod to the Fool role in the Midsommar Festival or the Wicker Man.
Yeah, I mean, it's fine, but it doesn't really tie in with the rest of the themes, so it's pretty quickly forgotten.
Yeah, I mean, it is, but we also get the line, he's can I join? You're American, just jab yourself in there, because he's gonna jab something else in there later.
Yeah, it's kind of... It's a weak thing, but, it does all flow. That's what I will give this movie props for, is, there's no part that's blaringly out of place.
It's to get Christian away, because Pele is again showing, hey, Christian's off having fun playing Skin the Fool, where here's a drawing. I remembered your birthday.
Okay, not gonna lie. For someone who was supposed to be her boyfriend for we don't know how long, but like a good while.
It's like 4 years or something, I think.
That's long enough to remember your girlfriend's birthday.
Yeah.
It is. We're also in 2019. Set a phone reminder.
Yeah.
Like, I get it. You're in Sweden. You don't want to pack a gift. Sure, but you didn't say happy birthday or nothing. It's just her celebrating by herself and now with her, creepy cult friend.
Yeah, kind of.
Sad.
Yeah, this whole movie's kind of sad.
I know, but also, it is a bit of a revenge story. And, depending on where you watch this from, it ends happy.
Yeah. But we do get a tour of the village now where they're looking at some stones where we're told it's old Futhark, which
Okay, again, I like that some of this is made up. Why are there ruins that don't work here? Get rid of them. Make something else up.
It does kind of. Old Futhark is actually real.
Yes.
It is the oldest form of runic alphabet that we know of.
Yes.
Which I like because it shows that this religion is more ancient than it's just to show that it's super ancient.
I agree. I don't care.
Yeah, I know. Because here's the thing.
Because the ruin that they picked using the modern definition of change and evolution, which is cool and fine, but also why not just make up your own?
Well, it's also just some bullshit that's thrown into it. Because he's not an auteur. He doesn't have full control over everything. He's not being like Guillermo del Toro, creating the entire language of shit.
Guillermo del Toro horror.
You are not getting that.
I know. But this has the bones. This has the ability to transform into it. Is my main gripe. But
it's also just quickly forgotten because we get this awkward conversation between the other couple there that are getting engaged.
I do not care about them.
And Christian dragging. Well, it's just to show that, hey, Christian's dragging his feet. Again, emphasizing something that we've already been told 20 times by this point.
He also can't remember how long they've been together.
Because this is the part where they're like, how long have we been together? About 3.5 years. No, 4 years.
It's been 4 years. We had our anniversary. Remember? We did stuff on our anniversary.
Yeah.
I took you out because you forgot to make reservations, and I'm sure how that conversation was meant to go.
Yeah.
Yeah, no, I don't dislike them because they're only there to continue the narrative that Christian is a terrible person.
Mm-hmm.
Or a terrible boyfriend, or however you want to see it.
Yeah, because it's also in the middle of a bunch of other strange shit of just a bear in a cage where they're just like, well, why is there a bear there? Just ignore it, it's a bear. It's like, okay, cool. Then we don't see anything about it until way down the line.
Yeah, no, I also would have more questions about bear in the cage.
Yeah, and then we get the shocking sex spell on a tapestry that just is there. I don't know.
It's hanging out to dry.
Is this their way of communicating the old ways of here's our sex spell that we're going to put on a tapestry that we have to air out every now and then?
Okay, so the airing out part, I agree. Makes no sense. I did find some bits from the set design where they were inspired by the traditions of Germanic and Hungarian and Romanian detailed paintings around doors and tapestries. And so they wanted to bring that into this cult. Notice I didn't say Swedish.
But this is the only time we see it too.
Okay, so the original thought was inside the houses where there's, especially the one later where Christian's staring down the wall.
Mm-hmm.
That was meant to be more of a closer realistic representation of where that information would have stored, where those stories and quote unquote spells would have been passed down. I agree. It is weird that the sex spell quilt is just hanging out on the line to dry. Did it get dirty? Did we need to wash it? Why is it out here?
Mm-hmm.
Other than the fact to tell the audience, hey, Christian's gonna eat a pube and maybe some period blood. Get excited.
But then when they also kind of explain that down the line too,
they
it's
do.
Just...
They double down on it, which this movie flips back and forth between just blatantly telling you what the supposed mysticism or magic or however you want to see it just, faith and belief that this cult has.
Yeah.
They go from showing you very, detailed oriented for you to figure out yourself, and, it's not so hard that you're not going to know exactly what is going on. And then they just tell you anyway.
Yeah.
Don't tell me you made these really cool pictures. Yeah, it doesn't make sense why the sex spell is out in the sunshine, but also, who am I to judge? I don't know. I don't have one.
I mean, it's not really even building up any suspense either, because, we have the whole interior of the communal room just drawn and painted over, showing every aspect of their life. I'm sure you could probably break down every single thing in the background, but
sure.
It doesn't...
But they also don't give you enough time to do that.
No, exactly, because we're immediately on to, the Maid Queen, and the other thing with this is, there's no, especially compared to, other folk horror films, I'll say that, there's no clashing of ideals this whole movie. Everyone is just really going with the flow and just be like, well, this is the way it is. We do have one little clash, but that's the only time it happens, and it's partway through.
Okay, so I think there is clash, but it's not with our main character.
No.
Danny has no trouble with any of this.
Mm-hmm.
Almost for the whole movie, pretty much. The people who have problems with it or don't understand it, or are the outsiders, are the background characters who get almost no thought. The audience doesn't get to know their thoughts. We don't get to know their feelings. Because this movie really isn't Wicker Man is about the outsider coming in, right?
Mm-hmm.
Whereas Midsommar is really more of a breakup movie with cult put over the top.
But here's the thing, is it does have those folklore elements where it is outsiders coming in.
No.
But
it has all of the elements, but that isn't the focus of the movie at all. It's all about Danny. And Danny doesn't care. Danny's having a great time.
That's why the folklore element becomes weaker on consecutive watches.
I agree, but I also think that while this movie tries very hard to be folk horror, I think where most fans have found the best representation in it has been the cult horror. Because while this does have the dressings of folk horror on it, it is essentially just a cult movie.
Mm-hmm.
With, some bad breakup happening.
Yeah. We also get interrupted where they're bringing in modern stuff the kids are watching Austin Powers together. It feels very out of place, and I wonder if it's a sly joke that the fact that Austin Powers has a Swedish penis pump and this group is kind of sex-oriented, but not fully in the way, The Wicker Man is.
I see it more as that movie's kind of old, and they probably have it on DVD. VHS. So it's one of those things, and this is another thing that when you look at it from, how cults try to be, this is one of those things where they will tell you when you join, look, we're not cut off from the world. Look, we have movies, we have music, but their movies and music are on VHS and DVD so that they can be hand-selected.
And this implies that they have at least one room that has electricity, even though we see nothing but natural lighting and... Which is
another thing that's very, leans more into... Granted, a bit of an extreme example, because this is, a fake horror movie. But,
I like that.
But, that is something to lean into, is, it is taking you out of your comfort zone. It is trying to make a reliance on a quote-unquote old way of life, even if you're not part of that old way of life. They want you to be brought into it, have a tradition, have something that feels like tradition to you, but also have some stuff to keep you there longer. Because, if you were told, hey, you're going to join, would you like to join us? We have no electricity, we all wear only white, so good luck keeping that fucking clean without bleach. And also, all day long, what are you going to be doing? Gardening.
Mm-hmm.
Sounds rough, but if you, say we're bringing it back to our land, we grow our own food, we do have fun, we have the old stuff, but, we do try and limit it, we're trying to be back with nature. If you, depending on how you frame it, it goes from being, wow, y'all are weird, to, wow, you guys sound like you live a really wholesome lifestyle.
Sounds like Farm Sim video games.
Uh-huh. Yeah.
Yeah.
It's a bit like the beginning of Stardew Valley.
Just a bit. But we get a surprise cake from Christian. He's... I think this part, it feels very weak, because I think part of what it is he's trying to relight the spark and try and be somewhat apathetic, but Danny's also really cold herself in this moment.
Oh, I see it as that way, but I also see it a bit as Christian has noticed that Danny is getting attention from a guy other than him. And, like, we don't want her to, like, misunderstand. We are going to keep stringing her along for as long as possible.
I am going to disagree with that. Part of what I think it is, because there's been no indication that... I think what it is the reaction to the last couple where, like, Christian's dragging his feet. It's not because Pele's paying attention. There's been no interaction between Christian noticing that Pele's been giving her attention.
Sure.
And even then, it's only been he's handed her a drawing. Part of what I think it might be a little bit, too, is maybe at one point Christian was there for her. And he still is kind of continuing that a little bit. But this is also showing with the part where Danny's being a bit of a dick, where he's trying to be nice, and she's very cold and off-putting. So that's why he's kind of given up at certain points, and kind of maybe why he's distant. So I think it's a way of showing that while Danny is our focus and Christian is mostly in the wrong, Danny is also kind of in the wrong.
I agree. I also think it's there to make sure the audience understands that Danny is not meant to be, like, the perfect sacrificial virgin that we normally see in these, like, especially, like, a theme like this, where we're, you know, a bunch of kids out in the middle of nowhere sort of horror. This isn't a study on 80s Scream Queens. This is a look at a complex relationship and how a cult influences that, and then eventually we murder them for fun. Yeah.
And now it's bedtime, which we're told about the first ceremony of Etustra, which
I'd get no fucking sleep in this place. They all sleep in one big room, one big barn
with children screaming.
Yes, because up until, like, I think it's like 18 or 19, you're considered child. It's the spring of life or whatever. And then once you're past that age, then you can move into a family home because you're in the summer of life.
It's much older. It's like 23.
Yeah, it's like crazy long. I would lose my ever-loving mind. Yeah. Good God.
Which, of this ritual, it potentially existed, but we don't really have any real idea that it ever did. It's kind of similar in a way to, if anyone's familiar with the Ballad of Narayama, which is kind of it's kind of in the same way where the elderly accept their death not to be a burden to the younger generation.
Sure. Yeah, no, like, it's based on real ideas, whether or not it really happened this way, and, like, how long people continued that tradition is, that's a little bit more debatable.
Yeah. One thing I do like about this scene, though, too, is that the way they address the no Wi-Fi or cell reception is when Josh brings up the ritual and Mark is looking it up, and he's like, oh, no signal, and then puts his phone away. I like this because it's so much better than later looking at your phone while you're in peril.
Yes. Or, like, trying to write phones out of the equation at all. This feels much more realistic.
Yeah, it's a good way of showing the isolation without being harping on it.
Exactly.
Which, unfortunately, I wish this level of detail went into a lot more of the movie.
Which is why I have complaints, especially having watched it as many times back to back as I have now. Because there are some very good bones, there's some very good details, there's some beautiful cinematography that is in this movie. It has the potential to be, like, that next level of movie. It has that potential to, like, surpass just being a horror film and into that, like, realm of, like,
a new classic like Wicker Man.
Exactly. It just misses the mark just ever so slightly sometimes. And part of that is because it just keeps missing details or adding them where they have no business.
It misses the mark slightly and frequently enough that by the time it's completely missed the target.
Yes, completely.
But we get to the next day where some of them are making fun of the old ways, and Dan's, again, just there.
Danny, I do appreciate that, like, part of explaining Danny's A, reluctance, and B, like, silence and unopinionated on everything is by giving her a traumatic event at the beginning. Not only does it prime her for cult behavior, but it also gives the audience a reason for why our main character doesn't have opinions. She doesn't seem very motivated for anything. She just feels like a dead husk. And that's because she is.
Yeah. She's a scarecrow.
She is a scarecrow.
One thing I do want to note about the table is that it is in the shape of Othel, or Othola, which is the rune for home. And it's also associated with inheritance, property, and the transmission of culture and spiritual values from one generation to the next.
And while it is cute and clever, it is also very silly.
Exactly.
This is the worst table setup for anyone at all, no matter what we're doing. This is garbage. And on top of that, like, it is...
It's so dumb in the way, like, it's just...
There's no other reliance on the audience knowing a meaning behind a ruin.
Mm-hmm.
Other than, like, there are ruins sometimes scattered in, like, 2 other places in this movie, but they are not used as a way of, like, direct storytelling. This is. Mm-hmm. This is something that the audience was meant to have done research before they came to this movie, but nowhere else was it needed.
No.
Why?
It's just, it's the thing that we've talked about this whole movie of just putting little inklings of, oh, this could mean something, and it means fuck all, or it's just surface level related. And
this is where I think Wicker Man does it better, because Wicker Man made up its own symbols, its own characters, and yes, some of them are based off of a, like, realistic setting, but it wasn't done in such a way that, like, you needed to come with your own research, you needed to have your own knowledge. It made up the backbone of its own stuff. Exactly. It made up its own symbols. It made up its own, like...
But it didn't really... Here's the thing, is, like, Wicker Man was true to its magic and its lore.
Exactly.
Like, it pulled from real life and kept that representation instead of just, like, you know what?
Yes.
This rune, we're going to make that table that rune.
It's just silly. It is silly.
Yeah, it feels like postmodernism, where it's like, we're going to just slap stuff on it because it looks nice.
Yeah, and, like, don't get me wrong, it does look cool. Like, it does look really good. But, this movie goes back and forth between making its own attempts at stuff and then also relying on other symbols and things that it's not explained well enough. It's not leading anyone anywhere.
No, exactly. Because immediately after the meal, like, we don't even really get much of it. We get to the cliffs, which are way overexposed.
Yeah, I think, again, the cliffs were done for shock value. And a huge part of that was because the marketing for this film was misleading. And I think this is where the marketing was misleading. The other horror that's going to come later is honestly not that misleading. It's shocking, it's horror. This one, however, like, the beginning... unnecessary. This one, it's a good, like, shock horror. Like, it's well done. It's, you know, it's interesting. It adds to the, like, lore of this cult and this people. However, this was the scene that multiple people in the theaters when we watched it had to go, oh no, I've made a terrible choice. Yes. Because again, this was advertised in the most vague way possible, and I don't even know if it necessarily was properly advertised to be horror. It was, like, loosely horror.
Yeah, and honestly, I don't think I remember seeing a trailer for Midsommar, because this is, at this point, I was heavily into, I don't watch trailers.
There weren't many for this. There was one. I do remember it coming out before this. It wasn't necessarily one of those trailers that was, like, only tied to other horror films, which we see a lot for, like, very jarring graphic movies similar to this. And it also wasn't, like, explaining that it's going to be a graphic horror film, like, I don't know, like Saw. Like, the commercials of Saw, you have no doubt in your mind you're gonna watch someone chew their own leg off, right?
Saw, the new Saw, I will say, is a good return.
Yes.
Yeah.
This one, the focus was very heavily on the mystery part of it, and on the beautiful flower ports. Like, the beautiful cinematography was what was shown for the advertisement. Not a bad advertisement, however, a very misleading advertisement.
Exactly.
And the later horror, while gruesome, is the type of horror that you would expect. This one, we don't get to blink. You get to look at it the whole time.
Well, and on top of that, like, some of the effects are a bit cheesy. Like,
a bit.
The first time they smack the face with a hammer and it just, like, completely caves in, and then the next time they're swinging it, it just kind of, like, bounces off of it, and it's very fleshy. Like, it does, like...
It feels like a exploration of smack. Like, it doesn't feel, like, cohesive.
No, not at all.
But it is very shocking, and it is cool. It's just, it doesn't feel like it fits in.
Yeah, well, and it's funny because we do see this contrasting of the characters where Christian is, like, freaking out. Danny's just kind of in shock.
Danny's been in shock this whole movie, though.
Yeah.
Bless her.
But Christian's not there for her, whereas the other couple, they're both there together, like, experiencing it the exact same way. We're like, this is fucked up, we gotta get out of here, man. Yeah. And this is, like, really the first and only clashing of cultures, per se.
Yes.
Or I would say in the movie. I mean, we get some clashing, but it's not like clashing of ideals.
Yeah, no, this is the only real clashing of ideals. And while I get why the movie wanted to go this way to create that tension, this is a scene that, yes, it is hard to watch, but again, because we are watching this from Danny's perspective, this is a very, like, inefficient way of getting that clash to happen.
Yeah.
Because even from, like, a first-time watcher standpoint, this does just feel like a shock factor for shock factor value without really, like, adding a whole lot. Yes, we get the character's reaction. We could have gotten that a few different ways, though. They don't really seem to react to literally anything else, and...
No.
There's no build-up.
Yeah,
Which,
no.
It looks good, though.
It does, but it also doesn't, because when you start, like, digging into it, because I took a picture and wrote down the like symbol on the stone that the elders pass, which I wonder, do they have to wash that blood every time, or do they just kind of let it sit there and wait the next 90 years?
I mean, if it's 90 years, it's going to be gone by the next 90 years.
But this happens when everyone turns 72, so is there, like, a 70...
Oh, every year. Yeah, every year we're mushing people.
But this is part of that 9-day feast, so it just... The timelines don't make sense. I think he just chose 90 because it looks good. And
I agree.
Also because, like, and just some of the,
I also do question why we have Death Day and May Day on the same day. This feels like two different holidays.
It's the day of life and death.
Which is cute, but also this is a lot of work, because now we also learn that, like, yes, their elders jump from the cliff. We learn later also, though, that their elders are, like, burned into powder and sprinkled across a dead log. So, like, that takes time and effort. Somebody is missing out on festivities because they have to burn the dead people. And what if, okay, this year there was only 2 old people. What if next year there's, like, 10 old people?
I like that you bring this up, because that's the one thing about the rune that they're touching, is it's divided into 9 parts. And this is where it would be cool if this was true. But from my reading of it, in the middle line, there's 2 runes that represent ride and journey, associated with movement, change, and the journey of life.
Yes, I got that as well.
And the 2 turn, and then in that same line, the last one is Tiwaz, which is an extension of the god. So kind of like a return to God or whatever. And this is all over the Pithero, which is pear tree wood, which the symbolism is unclear in the rune itself. If we're going off Elder Plutarch, like they talked about.
I mean, again, that is what they said. However, when the director talks about it, he does flip-flop between modern rune interpretation and, like, the traditional.
Yep. And the others, there was one rune I couldn't find, but at least I was only using Elder Plutarch.
Yeah, it's a modern one.
The other ones were Gebo, which means gift and exchange, which if it actually worked with the rest of the movie, I would care. Yes.
Also, when I say there's only, like, 2 other places that the runes show up, this is one of the other ones, and the other one's in the background of one of the walls later. Runes really don't play a significant role in this movie, which is disappointing, because if he had gone full in, if, like, other things had been labeled in runes too, that could have been very cool.
Don't forget the under the pillow fuck charm.
I'm not counting that. I'm not counting the fuck charm, because we were given the whole goddamn spell earlier.
Yes.
And it doesn't really add anything by, like, slapping a rune on it. It makes it feel, like, modern witchy, and honestly that gives it a cheap feeling. Yeah. Whereas if he had leaned it, like, this is a good example of where he used runes. It's not so in your face that it feels cinematically silly. It just feels like it's part of their ancient traditions. It feels older than the rest of the world. A great use. Continue that theme. Yeah. That was good. Why is it now, like, added later for no reason? Why are the tables set up like this? Because this is a good interpretation, like having one that doesn't really work, having some that like have multiple meanings or unclear meanings because they're old or depending on what, translation group you're using. That's good. That's a great way to like add a level of like digging but also confusion.
Yeah. Yeah. And I mean, Christian's just also not being there as well again. Or
Christian should not have been at all.
Actually, towards the end, Christian's trying to comfort Danny a little too late. But
a little too late, but also I feel like this is the first real bad thing to happen to Christian in a while.
Yeah.
Like
bad's loose.
Yeah. This is the first bad thing that he's going to feel like has happened to him, even though he is fine.
Yeah. Well, and on top of that, like, Danny's just cold to him again. So,
I mean,
when he's trying, it's not going anywhere.
It's one of those, like, a little too late sort of scenarios.
Yeah. And now we get back to the group house where Christian is being a bit of a bitch.
Yeah, he doesn't handle stress and trauma well.
No, because now he's decided he's going to make this his thesis, and...
okay, why wouldn't you have chosen that beforehand? Like, you show up at a cult house and you're like, this is not... Like, why wouldn't you declare that way earlier?
He had the spark of inspiration.
Bull fucking shit. This man is so dense, so slow.
Yeah. But I think Josh is 100% in the right that I like the way he puts it. It's not a casual hobby, which also feels like a jab at Christian and Danny's relationship.
It feels like a jab at Christian in general. He feels like the sort of guy who doesn't really take anything seriously, and even stuff that he thinks is like, or is something serious, he doesn't take it with enough fervor.
Or he's that guy who's like, I want to do X, Y, and Z. I want to be this type of person, but they're not taking the steps to become that person.
I want to get really buff, but refuses to work out.
Exactly. Which, we had a little bit of this earlier because Christian was talking to Pele about it, but...
Yeah, whatever.
It feels like Christian doesn't really know what he wants still.
No, but he also doesn't feel like he's trying to, figure that out. He definitely feels like, as a character, he is literally waiting for things to fall in his lap before he figures stuff out.
Yeah, and as Christian goes to do his thing, he's told that it's not an issue to do a report on the place, just can't use names or locations.
Sure.
Who's there to try and comfort Danny and explain that his parents all were also lost in a fire and that he's there for them and that this ritual was beautiful.
Yeah.
Pele.
Yeah, again, though, this is very good cult writing, and it's like, she has been in shock this whole time. Like, this is her only connection to to anyone, and he's doing a good job of pulling her in. Yeah,
making a really good line of, does he feel like home for you?
Yes. And, okay, this is something, too, that, when you look at this from a, cult lens, it is as opposed to a horror movie lens. A horror movie lens shows that Pele is trying to draw her in to be part of the horror movie. The cult lens is he is trying to get her to join his family.
Yep.
It's a really good dynamic. I like this level of undecisiveness when it comes to the theme of this movie. I do like it. I think it works well at points, and this is one of them.
If we only had more of it instead of the bullshit folk horror that Aster was trying to shove down our throats.
I agree.
Yeah.
I agree.
Because immediately from here, we get the burning of the elderly and this is the part where Christian finally shows up and he's like, that was really shocking. It makes me think of that scene in Supernatural where Dean gets scared by the cat and he's like, that was scary.
Yes.
Yeah.
Yeah. That was a good episode.
Yeah.
Whereas Christian's just too late to the party. Even his other friends are looking at him where have you been? We've all already agreed that was a terrible thing, and you are just now realizing what happened. Come on, man, get with the program here.
Yeah, no, exactly. And immediately from here we go to night where Danny's dreaming of everyone gone, which I know dreams are supposed to be weird, but they're all in a car, and I think it's just to show that she's afraid of being left behind.
I also get the feeling that the writer and director was worried that the trippy scenes that he put in that are like the nature-based ones, the drug-based ones that happen during the day, weren't going to feel balanced throughout the whole movie. And so we needed some other trippiness to like help keep the theme going. Which
it doesn't help.
I agree the theme needs to keep moving. I don't think the dream helps anything, and honestly they're pretty forgettable. So yeah, I don't know if they necessarily cohesively work.
No. Well, because it's immediately cut short as Maya makes her move and puts the fuck talisman underneath Christian's pillow.
Hilarious.
Yeah. And we cut to the morning where they're putting the burnt people at the end of the tree. And here's the other thing, too, is like all this folk horror just happens in the background for the most part, where it doesn't feel special. It just feels like random shit happening in the background that is supposed to add up in the end.
I agree that, like, again, from a folk horror standpoint, it also doesn't really ever fully come full circle.
Mm-hmm.
Like, there is definitely symbolism that is proclaimed, but it's not necessarily well thought out or functional in, like, a realistic sense. But at the same time, watching it solely from, like, a cult film, as opposed to that, it does work, because Danny's not really noticing what's going on around her. She's still in a fog.
No.
So, like, it's a two-sided sword, depending on which one you're watching, I guess.
Yeah, because we also learned that this talisman is... Pele immediately figures out that's Maya, and he's happy about it in ways that Christian's not picking up, but we as an audience are like, oh, he's happy because this is going to help Christian get even further out of the way.
Yes.
We learned that she's reached her Mindig, which is just the age of maturity.
Yeah, you know.
Just kind of whatever. And all of this gets interrupted by Mark pissing on the
This is
Rotvolta.
the stupidest scene.
Yeah.
This is the dumbest scene. And not just from, like, comparison and, like, the nitpicking we've done earlier. This is a dumb scene in general.
Mm-hmm.
The scene doesn't make any sense. It's supposed to add tension, but, like, it doesn't even logically work. Like, the man is 5 feet from the actual woods.
Yeah.
And also, like, I am all for this cult having, like, a tie to nature and all that. This is literally just a log on the ground.
Yeah, well, and here's the thing. So, he's not even pissing on the tree. He's pissing behind it. Close, but not on it. And even if he was, like, if he was pissing on the tree, like, his dick would be out to everyone.
The other thing that I don't like, and part of the reason why I think this is by far the worst scene in this movie, like, to the point where I would actually prefer this cut completely from the film, is this... We have gone out of our way to show that this cult overly decorates even the mundane.
Mm-hmm.
And you're going to look me in the eyes and tell me they don't decorate their dead people tree?
No.
There's no garden around it. There's no flowers placed. There's no rocks placed.
No one's
Nothing.
told to be like, hey, this tree that's laying over here is not meant to be pissed on.
Yeah, there's not even a path to the dead people tree, which we know they at least put dead people on once a year.
Yeah.
So, like, this feels like bullshit.
Yeah, it's just a dumb way to get rid of Mark. Because,
Yes.
like, I mean...
And, like, don't be wrong, I would also prefer Mark gone. I am not upset by, like, him having a beef with a different guy in the background. That's fine. That's all fine. It is literally just the fact that they literally, like, looked at a tree on the ground and were like, this is the sacred
just
thing.
do exactly what they did later on, where they lure him away.
Yes.
By sex, basically.
Or even just have him be his normal self in the movie to one of the other people. Like, he's an ass. He terrible. Like, he talks bad. He, like, badmouths the village. The second he shows up, he's, like, talking bad about it. Have that be the, like, counterpoint.
Yeah. Oh, I mean, that's his character is supposed to be the comedic relief, but the way he acts is very much like in Wicker Man, where he's already complaining about, like, the old ways and whatnot.
Yeah, like, that would have been a much better conflict, is if the elder guy that, like, he has a conflict in the movie with, if that guy had instead taken offense to all of the jabs this guest has made to his home. That would have been much better than the random tree on the ground.
Yeah.
The tree doesn't work.
No, not at all. Also, why it doesn't work is, as far as I could find, Rotvolta just means falling and rotting tree, which...
Yes. Which is fine. And, like, the symbolism of the tree rotting and going back to the earth is fine. But again, it's not decorated. It's not placed anywhere special. It doesn't work.
But also, this tree's been here for over 90 years rotting.
Sure.
Yeah, it again...
I mean, it would have been a really big tree. But, like, yeah.
Yeah, it all sounds good. And it just feels like shit that Aster just slapped onto it, like, Rotvalta, falling and rotting tree. It has kind of symbolism to, like, this community kind of rotting away and kind of also, dead, but, like...
And also, like, giving your dead back to the earth, letting them create new life. All of that symbolism is fine, but this is a terrible way to try and
You'd put it at the base of a live tree, not a dead tree.
I could even understand having a dead tree, but having them have planted stuff on top of the dead tree.
Yeah.
Like, all of that would have made more sense, but it's not. It is literally a dead log in a field. I would have removed it if it had been my property. Like, it would have been in the way of the rest of the field use.
Yeah. No, and amidst this tension, the other couple's leaving, with just a lot of scattered information that doesn't add to the movie. And
this is okay, I'm glad you brought this up. This is something that kind of bothers me, and I wish the movie had gone a little bit more out of its way to like depict. I would have preferred if some of the background couples that we talked about at the very beginning, that we saw, that we know were somewhere on this freaking village, if it had been very clearly stated, they went home.
Yeah.
We didn't kill them. They went home. And you will never see them again because you don't know them.
Yeah.
And you never think twice about the random people you met abroad on your vacation.
No.
Like, that would have worked so much better as opposed to what they did, which is just have all of those people stop being in the movie. Like, it's implied they went home, but it's also implied they're dead.
Yeah. Well, it doesn't even matter because immediately we're on to them asking, or onto Christian asking about, like, how does everyone get their job? And it's like, well, we pick what they're good at when they're young. I mean, it's very much the old school track system that, like, my grandparents in Germany were on.
Sure, and, like, it's not necessarily unheard of, and it is something I wish had been properly explained. Again, get rid of the emphasis on ruins and go back to what you said at the beginning you were going to do, which was have everyone in the village have a place.
Yeah.
Which would have led into the cult thing more. Because then Dani would have had a place to fill. She's clearly good at baking. And it's clearly in the movie, but we didn't bother with it.
Pele is really wanting a place to fill.
But that's where I would have made the argument that Pele is like the village recorder. Like, he does the sketching for the important things of the year. You get your portrait done on your birthday.
Who the fuck took the photographs that we saw earlier?
No, that's what I'm saying. I feel like that was meant to be Pele's job, but he chickened out of doing that theme.
Yeah, it feels like what's the story? It's like Population one something where, like, when someone comes in and they stay the night, they're now part of the town and one person must die.
Oh, sure.
Yeah, it feels like it's trying to be that as well, but not.
Which also doesn't work because he blatantly said that, like, oh, you know, we know we're a remote town, so, like, yeah, we do ask if, like, someone wants to move here, that'd be great. But, like, that's also a normal thing. Like, there's lots of small towns all across the world that are dying because people don't live there anymore. They have incentive programs for you to come move there. Yeah.
No, exactly.
Yeah, like, again, all of this was clearly at some point someone thought it. They just didn't bother doing anything with it.
It didn't get flushed out at all.
Or even just, like, detailed.
Yeah.
Just put a detail in there. Throw it in.
Yeah, because immediately from all this chaos and all this tension, it's just more Christian ignoring Dani and going through the motions, which now I did notice that the film does like color palette wise and exposure wise gets darker.
It does. This movie is going to flop between two very different color settings. It's going to have what feels like night, even when it's not actually nighttime. And then it's going to have a oversaturated bright day. And those are meant to be conflicting. Those are meant to show, like, this overabundance. And it's also like your brain is going to remember those overly bright moments better. And I think that's a really clever way of showing how Dani is, like, she's being bombarded. But she's so tired, she's so sad, she's so empty that bombardment feels good, as opposed to being too much.
Yeah. It's actually making her feel something instead of the blasé, cold nothingness she's felt before.
Exactly. And when you look at it from like a sane, healthy, logical standpoint, and especially someone who like was looking at it from a cult lens, you can see that this is like a bombardment. This is not like a healthy relationship with like life and how you should see your surroundings. But Danny's not in a healthy mindset.
No, not at all. And she's still going with the flow. I mean, she's invited to help with the cooking again.
She's given clothes that fit her.
Yeah.
This is the first time in the movie that Danny is wearing clothing that actually fits her.
And makes her part of the community while no one else gets this clothing.
No, and I think it is a perfect touch. This is the detail I like in this movie.
Yes. But it's immediately passed over as Josh is learning about the Ruby Radar, their sacred text that's always in progress. Already having a complete library, their deliberate inbreeding, even though they talked about, like, we select carefully so that way we don't inbreed.
Okay, I don't care about this part. I watched this movie now 3 times this week alone, not including the multiple times in the years past that I have seen this movie. I like this movie, don't get me wrong. This part, I don't care about. I think the details that we've bitched about up until this point should have replaced this part. Because that would have flushed all this out without you physically telling me.
Yeah. No, exactly. It's very much a lot of telling without showing us, or
like showing us
and telling.
Well, it is doubling down on showing and telling, and it's also, we saw stuff earlier, like the work, like how important a job and a place is into the cult. And then when they talk about it, they either don't include it, or they deliberately go against what we already know the cult is doing.
Yeah.
Which doesn't make sense, because this isn't the cult, like, this isn't the movie trying to confuse the audience or try and, like, represent how cults, like, go back and forth on their word, and, like, how the religion is always fluid because it's fake, it's made up.
Yeah.
This isn't doing that. This is literally just trying to tell the audience about what the movie is happening, and it doesn't do that.
No.
This doesn't work.
Well, and that's because the movie's so divided in trying to be this folk horror icon, but so focused on the main story that is supposed to be the focus.
Yes.
Like,
and honestly, like, I really do feel like if we got rid of this, the rest of this folk part would have fit in a little bit better. Because we would have been, again, only looking at this from Danny's point of view.
Yeah.
She doesn't need to know any of this. She's already sold.
No, exactly. But we get back to dinner where Mark is obsessed with getting late at dinner. We do get the little bit that Maya is setting a special pie aside. We see the menstrual lemonade, which
I love that, you know, everyone else in this cult can see that menstrual lemonade from literally every single, like, seat in this table, and none of them are gonna step up and be like, hey bro. Like, no, not all of them are like, to be young and in love. Well,
and I like that it's how Krim from Chicken on a Stick, he hated, or Patrick from Chicken on a Stick, I'm used to his screen name. He hates this scene in particular because it's like, it's not subtle at all. It's not clever.
Okay, I agree, it is not subtle. However, the perfect symmetry in this scene is so well done that I think it makes up for it to an extent.
Yeah.
Because, and here's why. This movie flops real hard back and forth between, like we said, trying to be this discreet folk horror thing and trying to be a visually stunning telling of a tale. And at this point, we are visually stunning. And I think that works. It is when we are trying to be smart and witty and clever with our like clues, that's when it starts to fall apart. When we are being blatant, this movie does work.
I'd say yes and no, because we are going to get to a point where there's some blatant bullshit that, like, is really dumb. Because it happens after the dinner scene where we do have him eating the pubic hair.
Hilarious.
Oh, that's a pube, man. Which, whatever.
Yeah.
But there is some smart dialogue in this, I will say, where Danny is really firing back, where there's the line, I'm sure it was just a miscommunication. And then her response is, I could possibly see you doing that.
Yes, it does feel like Danny's finally getting life back in her.
Yeah, she's actually responsive and not, like, just going with the flow. She's kind of going against the flow at this point. But this is... Oh, and Mark goes off to screw someone.
Don't care about Mark. Mark could be dead already. I don't care.
Yeah, don't care about the other woman. She's just kind of there.
Yep.
But this is the part where Josh seems to know what's up, but they're back.
Why is Josh in this movie?
Because he's the one who's supposed to... He's the one who kind of brings them in there. He's the one who is... He is on the education... Or not educational side.
The only reason I feel like Josh is in this movie is to tell the audience stuff that doesn't actually have anything to do with it.
He's supposed to be like the bro conflict for Christian in like his professional life.
Yeah, to an extent, I agree. But he spends so much time telling me random facts that I don't care about that I kind of wish he wasn't here. Exactly.
But when he goes to bed and he has his sneakers outside of the blanket.
Yeah.
Like, dude, I know it's him trying, I know it's Aster trying to make it look like, oh, I'm showing but not telling. It's like, you could have not shown that and just had us seen him sneaking out at night.
Yeah, or even just, like, not had it at all.
Yeah.
Or, like, a background detail. Don't show me so blatantly.
No.
It's okay.
And
I'll catch it.
And he's not exactly quiet going to the house. I mean, it's just... I don't even get why the place only has a mirror, so that way it could have, like, the effect of, like, oh, look what's behind you, or you see what's behind you.
I do think from, like, a cinematic way, the mirror, like, it is a theme that is used several times in the movie, having, like, a mirror showing what's behind the characters, or even showing a room and then showing the reflection of the rest of the cast through the mirror. So, like, at least it's not out of the blue, but yeah, it does feel a little bit unused.
Yeah, and it's our first, like, real death amongst the group that we see, because they're wearing Mark's face for some reason. Like,
I don't know about that part. Yeah, I don't get that.
It's just more shock value instead of actually trying to, like, be clever in the symbolism of the deaths that we see later on.
Yeah, that is a good point, because later on the deaths symbolism feels accurate. It feels useful. The first couple of deaths, I suppose if you pulled hard enough you could get a symbol out of them, but it doesn't feel like we've been handed all of the rest of them so far, so I don't know why these ones are different.
Yeah. And now it's morning meal time, and the book is missing. We see Danny is a bit happier, and Christian is really turning on Josh.
Yeah, it's pretty, like, standard, like, conflict rising sort of scenes. Yeah. And it does work. It's just, it's kind of whatever.
Yeah, because it's just quickly overshadowed by we're back to the festival and the maypole dance, which it's cool fun. Symmetrical shots.
Yeah, I do like the maypole dance. I also like the overuse of drugs as an explanation on why we just stopped having Swedish playing. I think it works. It's cute. It's clever.
Yeah, it's fine.
Yeah.
And we also cut back to Christian at a house full of floral patterns. He's kind of gone off on his own, still going with the flow. Also, him going missing makes Danny worried, but his absence allows her to, like, lose herself in this moment, I feel.
I also think that in this scene, this is the scene where Danny finally realizes that she's feeling happiness. And it's also while he's not there.
Exactly.
And so, like, from a, like, viewer standpoint, this really, like, solidifies in the audience's mind that Christian isn't good for her.
No.
Because she is feeling happiness without him present.
Exactly. And surprise, surprise, she wins the May Queen.
Hooray! She is the best dancer.
Yeah. Food looking pretty. Now we're to an actually normal table.
Yeah, again, I kind of wish all of them had been this way.
Yeah, or if you're going to stick with the one runic table,
just leave them set up.
Yeah, exactly.
Yeah.
Which the food is putrid. I don't get the point of it. Maybe it's to show that maybe things aren't as cool as or proper as they look on the outside or pretty.
The only thing I can think of for this is, like, yeah, maybe that, and also, like, I kind of wonder if it's all in her head. Because, like, maybe she's gotten so high that food sounds disgusting, like, it all smells bad or something.
Yeah.
I don't really know. It doesn't really explain, because the rest of the food in this movie looks fine.
Yeah, she's one with nature now or some shit.
I do like the effect of having the flowers breathe.
It's cool effects.
Yeah, Aster said that he has, like, 60 different, like, versions of this where he went more trippy and less trippy trying to find the right balance. And I do think he succeeded. This is definitely the part of the movie everyone remembers. This is the part that looks the best. This is the part that was in the advertisement. This is fantastic. Also in the background, this is the scene in the trees where her, like, sister's face is imposed over the trees. I wish there was more of that. That looks really good. It's subtle, but it's there. The first time you watch it, you're gonna miss it. It's perfect.
Yeah. And also, in the presence of Danny doing well, Christian's not doing well. He's also now the only outsider wearing foreign clothes.
Yeah, good.
Yeah, I don't get why the old man slaps at him.
I don't know.
Yeah.
When you're old, you get to slap people, I think.
I don't know. It's just
when I'm old, I'm gonna slap random people.
Seems like it's a way to shut him up, but it's really dumb. Because...
It is, but also it kind of feels like they're treating him like a child, but he's acting like a child, so, you know, I don't know.
Yeah. And I do like that Christian is definitely under the siren's call, which technically this confirms their belief that the potion and ritual work.
Yeah, but also, we also have, you know, bias that Christian's a fuckboy and was looking for, like, he was looking for a date before all this. Like, he was gonna leave Danny at home so he could find a date.
Yep.
So, you know, when one is easily sirened, it's not that hard of a love potion to brew.
No, not really. I mean, the drugs probably helped too.
The drugs definitely helped, and also literally, like, one of the characters leans over and is like, go get her. Gah.
Yeah.
Yeah. Your girlfriend's not watching. Go.
Well, and that's because it's time to bless the crops, which I do like that they're still falling back on her crutch, and this is like the last time she does it. Because she's like, can Christian come?
Yeah.
It's like, nope, it's only for the May Queen and her brides. Or
her friends or whatever.
Yeah. And now it's time for Christian off to be the prize stud, which I do wonder, is everyone's first time in the village like this? Or like...
I think it's a lucky draw.
Yeah, which... I mean,
it is implied that, like, the other gal chose him. Like, she picked Christian out of all of them. Maya, or whatever her
Maya.
name. Yeah. It's implied that Maya's the one who's like, I declare that strange man is the one for me.
Yeah.
So, like, I don't know. I guess you lucky draw. Catch somebody's eye.
Yeah. Also, kudos to Jack Rainier for going fully nude in this.
I applaud this also because, again, there are so many similarities in the tropes to an 80s movie where we normally get female nudity as being, and not female nudity is like an empowering way or even just as in a like, oh, you caught me at a bad time sort of thing, but is like a humiliation tactic, right?
It depends on the horror film. If it's something like The Wicker Man or any of the classic folk horror films, it's to show their freedom and they're not restrained from the old ways.
But at the same time, a lot of that folk legend is leaning back against the, like, witch tradition of witches being the ones not afraid of their sexuality and nudity and the female form, going against the Christian ideologies. And so having them feel empowered from their nudity being part of the folkness makes a lot of sense. I like that Midsommar went with the male nudity as, like, him being embarrassed and being, like, humiliated from that, because it kind of solidifies this outside of being a standard, like, 80s Scream style horror, which it gets close to, especially from here up until, like, the burning. Like, that, it gets really close. This is a good way to differentiate that. Yeah.
I do also enjoy Christian's expressions in this, where, like, he's going with the flow, but his whole, like, what the fuck is going on?
He's having a terrible trip. Oh, poor guy.
You do kind of feel bad for him because he's
definitely, yes, there was
a horse led to water.
There was a very interesting debate in some of the reviewers on whether or not Christian really has any idea of what's going on here because of the drugs. And some people were like, well, we already know his, like, style and habits, and other people were, like, pointing to the fact that, like, he doesn't seem in control.
No.
And I like that this feels like the spiral for him, because we've had Danny being spiraling this whole time, and she's, like, essentially had no help until she got here, and then he is finally spiraling from the thing that is helping her. Yeah. It's an interesting back and forth.
Yeah, no, it's just... It is very interesting. It's a really weird sex scene too.
It is very uncomfortable, but at the same time, it leans into Christian's, like, having a bad trip sort of thing. Yeah. Whereas I guarantee that if he had not been high out his mind, he would have agreed to this.
Well, I dig it too because it also feels in a way, like, just his desperation of the multitude of women he's around. He's not screwing all of them.
Yes.
But if he could, he would, even though
Yes.
they're not, like, young and beautiful, per se.
But at the same time, like, yes, this is very much leading... And it also feels like it's leading into the fact that, like, Christian has definitely cheated on Danny before. Like, this is not a first-time occurrence. This is just the first time he's been caught.
Yes, because, Danny is back.
Oh, she spotted him.
Oh, yeah, that's right. She does look through the keyhole, and yeah.
Which leads to the meltdown, and leads to one of the best cinematic examples of love bombing I have ever seen.
Yeah, it's time for the group scream, which,
a great cult tactic.
Yeah, new trauma, but now she has the support around her, whereas last time, Christian was just kind of there, like, letting her mourn on him.
And remember, the cult created this trauma, and are now helping her through it, and they're helping her through it by, like, mimicking her, and, like, letting them lead her through this, like, overly emotional thing, which... Having a shoulder to cry on is not a bad thing. However, having an entire cult have you rely on them for your emotional well-being, that is when we get into dangerous territory. And this is setting Danny up to potentially never be able to handle or feel like she can leave, because this is her whole support. This is going to be her whole world.
Exactly. I also do like this scene too, because when Christian kind of gets out of his drug state and realizes he's been milked,
yes.
I do like that, and I know I learned this from The Big Lebowski, but when she's rocking back and forth, it's definitely trying to get prego.
Oh, yeah, no, I think she even has a line saying, I can feel the baby already.
Yeah. And just, like, his realization of, like, oh, fuck.
Yeah, this wasn't the fun fling I thought it was gonna be.
Yeah.
Despite, like, probably should have known that, Christian. Look around you, man.
Yeah, it also...
in a cult circle.
This feels like it's supposed to be the long build from The Wicker Man, but the way, like, Christian stumbles upon the foot in the ground, and then also the one dude he's been given the blood eagle, which I don't know why he was killed like that for the chickens.
No idea. Again, we had some very interesting in-depth lore earlier that did not pertain to anything. No. This would have been a better, like, oh, this was foreseen by the weird prophet child who didn't prophesize anything. Or, oh, in our ancient books that, like, we have to read, because, again, there's no one living who remembers how to do any of this.
Nope.
Like, in our ancient books, it's, like, it was described this way. This is how we interpreted it. Like, that would have been a much more, like, useful information for the audience to have.
No, exactly. And now we're on to the final ritual, 9 human sacrifices, which now they're speaking everything in English. Don't even care about the Swedish, even though...
Okay, earlier we had Danny trip so hard she learned Swedish. I am going to, with my whole chest, say that this is actually all in Swedish, and Danny just now knows Swedish. Though, there's not enough details, but, like, I think it'd be fun.
I don't think Danny learned Swedish, because Danny's not tripping at this point. Danny only knows Swedish when she's tripping.
That would be an interesting superpower. To only know another language when you're high.
And then you forget it when you're sober.
Yeah. No, I like the thought that, like, by this point the film has translated to they're all supposed to be speaking Swedish, partially to help with Christian's, like, confusion.
Yeah.
Because, like, we know the drugs have, for the most part, worn off. He's just paralyzed. But he also looks confused as hell.
Yeah. I mean, he's probably drugged again, too.
Probably, but, like, I don't know, it is a fan theory of mine that I like.
Yeah.
Does it work? No, because there's no details. But whatever.
Well, one other thing with the scene, too, is they've given Danny the illusion of choice, where they're like,
There's really no choice, though, is there?
Some random dude or your boyfriend who you just caught boinking another chick.
Also, we've already dressed him up in the bear costume. He looks so
He's not in the bear costume yet.
That's true.
Because he's out in a wheelchair, and then that's when she chooses him. And, yeah, this is where we realize, I mean, we knew this from the get-go. The friends were never going to leave. We find out the fate of the bear, which they equate Christian to a beast by dressing him in it.
Yeah, an interesting choice.
It's, now looking back on it, it's kind of a really bad analogy in my opinion of like.
I think the bear look works. I think it invokes a Swedish or Scandinavian-esque styling. Like, it's definitely something that is prominent in, like, folk legends, and it's definitely prominent in art. However, for tying, him to being as bad and terrible as a beast, bear's not a strong choice.
No. I do also wonder if it's a dumb nod to Nicolas Cage's The Wicker Man.
I would love that. I would love that. But also, like, that's based... Nicolas Cage's is also based on, like, bullshit. So,
yeah.
Hard to say.
Yeah. But now it's time for burning, which I wonder if they have... I mean, they have to rebuild that same hut every 90 years.
That wouldn't take that long. There's nothing inside there.
Yeah, it's more group hysteria, cleansing of Danny's emotions. The flower dress makes me think of, like, the horse from the OG Wicker Man, the Fool's horse.
Yeah, like just being overburdened with flowers.
Yeah, it's a beautiful scene. It's
gorgeous.
This is the scene, like, we walked into the theater too early, and this is the scene we first saw, so...
Yeah, and it looks good. It looks real good. I love the slow smile from Danny. Like, I love the, like, overdoneness of the cult members. It all adds in to the cult part of this really well. It looks good.
It's a warm, contrasting ending compared to the cold opening.
And on top of that, we have fully shifted color palette into bright and warm, happy colors, which implies that Danny is happy with her choice in joining the cult.
And free, so...
You know what? Good for Danny! Yay!
Congratulations, Danny. You joined a cult. Cue Neon Genesis Evangelion ending.
I'm so proud of you, Danny.
Yeah. But, yeah, I don't know. Going back to Midsommar, it makes me think of, in a way, attempts on, like, pagan folk horror Hostel, where you're taking American tourists in for your own needs.
Sure.
I mean, what did the villagers really do before this? Because if we go back that, like, this happens every 90 years, we're talking, like, the last time that... Oh, no, I calculated 100 years, so 90 years it was in the 1920s. I was wrong. I apologize.
Yeah, it does feel like the American tourist is maybe a new prey for the village. It's also one of those things where, like, again, because we focused on very strange, false, like, dead ends, instead of, like, actually thinking through and building up this village a little bit more flushed out, and, like, from your own creation as opposed to pulling from a lot of, like, little sources that don't actually go together, it does mean that, like, we don't have a good answer on whether or not this is a new cult that has made up a number, which is a very common thing that happens.
I mean, that's what we saw in The Wicker Man with Lord Summerisle.
Exactly, like, stating that this is a 1,000-year-old tradition when in reality it's only, like, 30 or 40 years old is very common. And honestly, like, would have fit in nicely with this narrative. But we don't know whether or not, like, this is actually an ancient cult that actually has some magic abilities. Yeah. Or if this is just, like, one guy started this and he's now dead.
Or it's the cult that Danny needed to move on.
Exactly.
But also, like, Aster wanted the, we talked about he wanted the movie to be about a relationship. And he wanted the catharsis to feel wrong. Which...
I don't think the catharsis felt wrong.
No,
that's the problem, though.
No, exactly. It's like, okay, this is the logical conclusion to this. Yeah, maybe Christian did deserve a little bit, but Christian didn't deserve to die. Neither did Will, Mark, Connie, or Simon. I mean...
No, but this is also a horror film, and if someone's going to die, I'd rather it be those characters than Danny.
Yeah.
Like, that's part of going into a horror film, is we go in being, like, bloodthirsty watchers. No one goes into a horror film and doesn't want anyone to die. That'd be a terrible horror movie.
So there's good ones without people dying.
Yeah, they're not in my top 10.
Yeah, true. But I think part of the reason, like, this movie just doesn't sit well with me rewatching it, or sit as well, is just, it as a folk horror is, it really doesn't deal with the conflicting of ideals, or... It does fall back onto the primitive ideas, and the old ideas are right, which we talked about in our discussion on folk horror. But it just feels weak.
It does. And part of that is, again, having too many sources and none of them playing together well. I do think, though, that while after having rewatched this with a very cynical eye and watching it a whole bunch back to back, I have found a ton of holes to poke into. Watching it like I had been, which was watching it about once a year, and then, you know, my only time watching it normally that I had any complaint was the very first time I watched it, and the only reason I had a complaint was because I felt lied to from the trailer. If I had known what I was going to be watching, I still would have watched the movie. I just wouldn't have watched it in theaters.
Yeah.
So normally I greatly enjoy this movie, but I think part of that is because I only watch it for a very surface level enjoyment. I watch it for the pretty cinematography. I watch it for the cool effects and for some interesting death scenes. There are death scenes that I don't see in a lot of other horror films. But yeah, from a big breakdown, it doesn't hold water.
Yeah, and I think part of it too is Aster said that he wanted to focus on visual storytelling over dialogue, and that the issue is the movie is so filled with bullshit dialogue that you kind of lose it in the visuals, and even then, some of like his visual storytelling is just dumb as shit.
Here's the other, like, gripe that I have with Midsommar, and it's less of a gripe with Midsommar itself and more of a gripe with Aster. And again, I haven't seen his new one, so I'm holding out hope that, like, as he grows as a writer and a director, we will see better and better and improvement from him. However, the improvement from Hereditary to Midsommar, while there was a little bit, honestly, the improvement was, it was a different, like, setting. It was a different story. Wasn't necessarily like leaps and bounds in his writing or storytelling or even dialogue writing. And that's my gripe. Hereditary had a cool idea. I thought it was like going to be very interesting. Then I watched it. There was a lot wrong. There's a lot that just could not be overlooked. Midsommar, cool idea. Had some really great cinematography. But again, it's missing a lot. And the reason that bothers me is because every time he brings up his own work, he clearly thinks of it in a much higher standing and thinking of it in a way that it was not actually delivered to the audience.
No.
And that's the problem, not because it's necessarily affecting me, but because I do see, like, there are really good nuggets in here. There's some really good potential. There's some really beautiful cinematography. The ideas for both of the movies I've seen from him are great. They're just not fleshed out. And I really hope that he can, like, step back, learn to, like, actually hear some of the criticisms that people who like his movies have given him, and, like, grow from them. That's one of the biggest things we see in horror films nowadays, especially ones who want to be, like, that next level. Yeah. They're trying to reach that, like, next level of being a director. Well, there needs to be more growth there.
And I think part of it, part of that issue falls in two folds. One, it falls into this concept of elevated horror or art house horror, where it's trying to be art for art's sake instead of making a good movie. And I think that's the big issue, is that Midsommar is trying to be an art piece first before being a movie.
Sure.
And on top of that, I think part of the reason it did so well mainstream is, one, it does have a relatively good feminist story.
Yeah, no, it's very interesting. It's very good.
But it falls into the vein of what I call a horror film for non-horror fans, which is in a similar vein, A Quiet Place. Movies like that where why does this horror film break through the mainstream, and why do people who don't like horror go see it? From your talking about it, I can see it from the advertisement. From the other side of it, it doesn't seem like your typical horror. It's not really your typical horror film, too.
Sure.
So it falls into that, like, realm where it's trying to do different things, but not doing a single one fully successfully.
Yes, and I think that's part of the reason why, from a money standpoint, it did do well. And it has fairly decent reviews and ratings. However, that is something that we have seen as almost a guarantee. Is movies that both do well money-wise and also have fairly okay scores. Like, I think it's running at about the 7.5 to 8-ish range, depending on what review site you're looking at.
Yeah.
Those movies are good because people watched them once, they enjoyed it, And that was the end of the discussion. They gave it a decent rating.
Mm-hmm.
Whereas if you want to reach that cult level status, if you want to be that next level, you either need to not do well at the ticket sales, or you need to have only good reviews with fans.
Yeah.
And I think part of the reason Midsommar is in that middle ground is, A, you're right. The advertising definitely tricked a lot of people who would not have otherwise watched this, much like The Silent Place.
Mm-hmm.
A lot of people who were not horror fans saw the advertisement for both of these and watched them. Whether or not that got them into horror, I don't know. I don't know if this was anyone's intro to horror. I doubt it. Unless it was accidental.
I guarantee you it was some young teenager's introduction to this type of horror.
Probably.
It's like how like Tokyo Gore Police was my introduction to Japanese body horror.
Sure. I'm sure someone accidentally saw this with the misunderstanding of what it was going to be, which is kind of how I saw it.
Mm-hmm.
However, I was already into this fandom, so I didn't leave. There was definitely some people who left. Which is fine. But that's kind of why I worry that this style, this, like, a lot of people consider to be a breakthrough or a revivance of the folk genre, isn't really that. It's just more of, like, the, like, brightest star.
Yeah, I'm probably gonna stick with something more like Hagatsutsu.
Yeah.
So.
It's good. I'm gonna rewatch it again because I like the effects, I like the cool colors, the story is fun. But it's by no means for me like, oh my gosh, this was innovative or redoing of the times. I just think it brought a genre like into mainstream because of advertising. Yeah,
and it's definitely one of those ones where I think we praise it a lot higher in our first looking at it. But again, surface level.
Yeah, no, if you're just going for surface level, fantastic. But that's where it falls for folk horror. Yeah. Most folk horror needs to withstand being actually like really dug into. That's part of the fun of it.
Exactly. So, Chris, good, bad, weird scale.
Oh, this is still good for me.
Okay.
I don't think it deserves a weird. I know he was trying to go for a lot of shock value. I know he was trying to go for like some really over the top being graphic and gruesome. I've seen worse.
Yeah, same.
The thing that got me was the surprise. And honestly, the part that upset me the most was the surprise realistic suicide at the beginning. Didn't feel like it was necessary. And it also wasn't well advertised. I didn't go into this movie expecting it.
Yeah.
However, if I know it's there, it's a different ballgame. So for me, it's not weird. It's not bad. It's just good.
Okay. I have to give it a good bad on my side because, while I will agree a lot of the cinematography is very beautiful, I think once you start digging into it and really watching it from different points of view, is that there's too much going on of what the movie's trying to do, with the side cast kind of being there to explain stuff, but not really working out in the end.
There's a lot of talking for no real reason.
Yes.
Yeah, I get that.
And on top of that, while I don't expect in movies for the lore to be accurate or 100%.
I mean, we watch too much garbage for that.
I expect it to be consistent or have meaning to the story, and in this movie, it's just kind of a splash of folk horror to, hey, I made a folk horror movie that's really this type of movie. It's not, you have this established genre, and
it feels like it's wearing something else's skin.
Exactly.
It's wearing a bear skin.
Exactly.
No, I fully agree. Like, that's...
Mark skin.
Honestly, I think that's part of the reason why we gave it a very good review when we first watched this, is it is wearing a skin that we know and love, but yeah, it's not really, like, inhabiting it, it's not really embodying it in any way, it's just got it sprinkled casually across it.
Yes. So, would you recommend this movie, Chris?
To some people. I will say the same thing that I did when I first watched this. For some people, this movie's going to be a lot of fun, and you're going to really enjoy it. However, I really do think that opening scene, it is not for everyone. If you can watch it on DVD and you know that you are not the sort of person who needs to be watching that, skip it. Just go ahead, skip that chapter. But if it doesn't bother you, if you're in a good spot, then yeah, I'm say watch it.
Yeah. I think I'm the same way. And even though I say it's horror for non-horror fans, it's still hit and miss on who I would recommend it to.
It is a bit much for an entry-level position.
Yes, I'd rather go with something. I'd rather recommend in folk horror. I'm going to say probably one of the Unholy Trilogy, but
yeah, no.
I'm going to go with Wicker Man for that recommendation.
And honestly, like, there are other, for both, folk horror and also for romance horror, breakup horror, like, all of the genres this tried to be, there are much better, like, entry-level positions if you are looking to, like, start out your journey. However, if you are already deep in the horror guts, you're going to have a good time.
Yeah.
It just might not mean much to you.
Unless you're Christian and you're deep in the bear guts.
Well, there's a lot of worms in there. I feel bad for them.
Yeah. So, now is the time of our show, the 3 Degrees of Takashi Miike.
Yes, let me know. Tell me.
Here's the rules again. 3 degrees to get to Miike. Has to be a movie connection. Can't use the same connection, i.e. movie actor, writer, or director twice. As well, I'll try to make the plot thematic as possible. If I win, a whole month of Takashi Miike. If Chris wins, an entire month of Barbie.
Woohoo!
That's not happening.
No, I figured that's okay.
But we're still going to play for the fun of it. So I went with Jack Rayner, who plays Christian, and is in Transformers Age of Extinction.
God, I forgot he was in that piece of garbage.
With Frank Welker, who was in 1998's Godzilla, and so people who remember Frank Welker from one of the others, he was the voice of the Anaconda in our Anaconda episode.
Oh, yeah.
Who was with Masai Kato, who was in Gozu, directed by Takashi Miike, a film about a series of bizarre events that a pair of Yakuza bros go through.
Alright, you win. Congrats.
Yeah. Unfortunately, this movie does take a big hit to the connections because we lose 3 connections. We lose Frank Welker, Maya Kato, and 1998's Godzilla.
Those are big connections. I'm surprised you pulled out the Godzilla one, but I understand. Yeah. Good job.
All about monsters.
Yeah.
And also kind of monstrosities in their own rights.
Yeah, that's true.
So, anywho, this has been The Good, the Bad, and the Weird.
Thanks for listening.
Peace. Thank you for stopping by this here town of The Good, the Bad, and the Weird. We appreciate your listenership, and if you want more of our takes in your life, feel free to check us out on social media at The Good, the Bad, and the Weird Podcast, or TGTBTW for short. As well, if we missed a fact, your favorite part of a movie, or just have a suggestion and want to reach out and say howdy, feel free to email us at tgtbtwpodcast@gmail.com. And feel free to join our Discord at The Good, the Bad, and the Weird Podcast, where we talk about movies, just share random banter here and there. And always, check out our podcasters, streamers, or any other content creator we shout out in our episodes. We really appreciate it. And as always, thank you for listening. Peace.